Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's January 25th, 2022 City Council, and we welcome you. It's the interest of government transparency with regards to deliberations and decisions made by the City Council and according to open meeting law. Since this meeting was posted as a Zoom meeting, this meeting is recorded by video and audio and will be conducted by remote participation. Additionally, all votes taken by the City Council during this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. If you're calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or device, there is a raised hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. I'd like to announce who's on the call. First, I'm Val Gilman. I'm the president of the City Council. I'd like to acknowledge that Jason Grow at large is on the call. On the City Council, Tony Gross at large, Jeff Wordley at large, Jamie O'Hara at large, and then we have all 5 of our ward councilors. In Ward 1, we have Scott Memard. In Ward 2, we have Tracy O'Neill. In Ward 3, we have Councillor Majota. And Ward 4 is me, and Sean Nolan is our Ward 5 City Councilor. We also are happy to have many members of city staff on the call. We have John Dunn, our CFO. We have Nancy Pappas, our Chief Assessor. We have Max Shank, our Director of Public Health, Jill Cahill, our CAO, Ken Coster, our Auditor, and of course our Mayor, Mayor Greg Berger, and Joanne Sinos, who is our City Clerk. So welcome everyone. I don't see anybody else on the attendee list that is a member of city staff. So before we get started, I would like to announce that 2 of our matters that are on the public hearing section of the agenda will be continued. And I just want people to be aware of that in case they're on the call for those matters. First of all, a public hearing in accordance with GZO section 1.11.2a, amend GZO section 2.31, residential uses 3.2 dimensional table, 3.22 dimensional requirements for multifamily dwellings and their accessory uses other than signs, and 3.1.6b, building heights in excess of 35 feet. Later on the agenda, that will be continued until February 22nd, 2022. And in addition, public hearing number 2, which is Concord Street, number 44R and number 44, map 229, lot 2, from R20, low medium residential, to EB, extensive business, will be continued to February 8th, 2022. I just wanted to announce that in case anyone is on the call expecting to speak on those matters in public hearing. So without further ado, first order of business, Madam Clerk.
First order of business is oral communication.
Thank you. The public shall have the opportunity at every regularly scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communications on matters not appearing on the agenda. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to city business to appear before the council, state their problem without debate, and the matter shall be referred to the proper agency through the office of the mayor. The resident will be notified within a 2-week period relative to the disposition of the same, and a copy shall be forwarded to the City Council. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each. You will be timed, and tonight Jason Grow will be doing the timekeeping, and the council president shall not allow complaints as to individual performance. And again, because the matters of Concord Street and zoning are on the agenda, those will not be allowable under oral communications tonight. But we have lots of site visits coming up, or excuse me, ward visits, ward meetings, and we can, our at-large Councilor Jason Grow will be talking about that later in his P&D report. So At this point, I'd like to ask for a show of hands if anyone here would like to speak in public comments for up to 3 minutes. Let me take a look at the attendees. And I see 2 people with their hands raised. Let's start with Patty Page. Patty, would you announce your name and your address? And we'd like to hear from you.
Hi, Council Gorman. Thank you. Patty Page, 3 Title Cove Way. Thank you, Mayor Verga, for being here, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring this to your attention. There is a zoning mechanism in the works. However, it is not the 9 planning board amendments, which I refer to tonight. The MBTA TOD has left the station. The city's been engaged in this process for more than a year, and it's the MBTA multifamily zoning requirement transit-oriented district overlay process. MAPC is given reviews on the draft guidelines. The city's engaged in drafting a position response to the state. Public comment period is currently open for the guidelines, which ends March 31st of 2022. And the state deadline for Gloucester to apply for the MBTA TOD compliance is May 2nd. This is important to us and why so many residents are concerned. There needs to be public engagement and transparency in this process. In the best interest of the public, please request that community development hold a timely, immediate public presentation to the City Council, which is required by the state prior to May 2. To share the status of this process, assist folks to understand the public comment process, allow public input into the city's response, and most importantly, a public decision should be made regarding Gloucester's involvement with this state initiative. I clarify, municipalities must qualify and apply for compliance. This is not a mandate. The train's left the station, it's coming into North Station. Time is of the essence. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Patty. Next with a hand raise is Patty Amaral. Patty, would you enter? And we would love to hear your name and your address, and you can speak for up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Patty Amaral, 14 Myrtle Square. Thank you for letting me speak. So I'd like to talk about Burnham's Field again. I was just down there again today. And I know I had brought this up in the December meeting when there was different people here. And I'm appreciative of Mayor Verga, who I sent an email to, and he did send it off to Mike Heel, but I don't feel that is enough. Our playgrounds are in bad condition. I'm not sure why no one else has seen what's going on down just at Burnham's, but I know a lot of different playgrounds have problems, like the Fort, because I have a granddaughter now, so I'm hitting all these playgrounds. The Fort has some metal part to it that's very dangerous. There just needs to be somebody that walks around and looks around at all the playgrounds to see what's wrong. Burnham's is horrible. I mean, the list I just sent was like eight items that need to be done. The mats are destroyed. The handicap swing has no strapping. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I'm hoping that this administration and everybody here can work hard to have our playgrounds safe for the kids that are using them, and all year round too, because like I said, I was down there today with my granddaughter. I looked up the strap for the handicap swing. It's only like $35. I'm willing to pay that money. I'm not sure why it is missing anyway. I can't imagine anyone stealing strapping from a handicap swing, but here we are. So I'm hoping that something can be done, a drastic change real soon about that, because you know, our kids, the safety of our children should be first and foremost. So thank you very much for listening. I'm hoping that the next time I go down there, I see something that's changed. So I really appreciate you guys. I know, you know, it's hard work doing what you're doing. I understand it. So thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you, Patty. Next person with a hand up is Beverly Palmasi. Beverly, would you come on and introduce yourself and state your name and address? And you have up to 3 minutes to speak on matters not on the agenda.
Beverly Palmacci, and I'm at 8 Commonwealth Avenue, downtown. I basically just want to agree with everything that Patty Page had to say. I'm very concerned about these zoning issues. I don't fully understand them. I did send an email to my new ward councilor, but have not heard back, expressing my concern and that I don't understand what's going on. And I think that we all need to have more information. I thought this was a mandate. That shows right there, I don't understand what's going on. But as I am downtown, it kind of horrifies me to think of adding that much density. We're already pretty dense. And with a lot of parking issues and people parking on sidewalks so that people can't walk on sidewalks. So I'd really like to know. I'm happen to be out of state at the moment, but if these issues are going to be decided, is it by March? I don't know. I'm not even sure what's being decided. So if we can get more information to the people in the city, I don't know anyone who knows either. So it's a concern. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
I see no more hands. Oh, no, I think that is it. So, but thank you for the 3 folks that spoke in public comments. We appreciate it. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is the presentation from Max Schenk, Public Health Director, regarding COVID-19 update.
Great. Thank you, Joanne. And I'd like to welcome Max Schenk, who will speak to us about COVID numbers. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I think the way I'd like to do this, Madam Chair, with your permission, is we'll go over the current numbers that we have, most recent, give a little bit of perspective in terms of what totals we have thus far. We can talk about how we were at this time last year, if you'd like, and also how the department is responding to what's going on and in terms of vaccine clinics and testing, et cetera. So with that, I'll move forward. And also I want to give a little bit of perspective to these current numbers because they are slightly misleading. So in terms of new cases, we have 249 new cases as of the 23rd. Now it's cases between, forgive me, that's the 20th to the 23rd. And active cases 217. Now, having said that, what we discovered was that the curative testing site was having some delays in its own laboratories and getting information out. So that information wasn't being presented to the state. And so that when it hit our books, essentially from the state, they came in one huge glug, if you will. And so the numbers are actually a little bit more elevated than they probably would be normally, such that they're about 5 days lagging behind. And as folks know, the time frame for isolation right now is 5 days with an additional 5 days of complete masking while you're outside. So having said that, we do have 1 hospitalization and we also have 1 death, sadly. In total, over this well, actually during the duration of the pandemic, we have a total of 4,963 cases. There were 186 hospitalizations, sadly 69 deceased, but total recovered was 4,677. In terms of positivity rates, we're at 19.73% of positivity for 3,314 tests. That's the total over 2 weeks. And I think to keep in mind that the other thing is, we're focusing now on vaccinations. And to date, the department's done about, since October, I think 14 COVID vaccine clinics and doing more and scheduling more as we go. So coming forward, we have a clinic at the Rosemaker Senior Center on February 3rd. That will be from 3 o'clock to 6:30. And the reason why we're doing that time frame is that we're hoping to catch those folks who just can't get there during the workday. So we're hoping that folks will sign up and get their boosters, and that's the other thing I'll want to talk about as well. So that's the first, second, and booster for that. We'll also have flu vaccines for folks. We're also planning a clinic at Our Lady of Good Voyage on February 26th. That'll be from 1 to 5 p.m. And our thanks to the folks there for their partnership. There'll be a follow-up clinic there towards the end of March, beginning of April as well. And we'll be doing another pediatric clinic at the Gloucester High School, date to be determined. But we've had, I think, 2 or 3 clinics thus far at this point at that location. The vaccine rates for the community are actually pretty good, but this is for 2 vaccines, keep in mind. So, we're at 82%, the state's at 84% considered fully vaccinated. Now, fully vaccinated is a kind of a misnomer. It didn't include booster vaccinations. And when I asked our partners at the Harvard School, if they could give us the percentage of people who are eligible for booster vaccinations that have received them, the numbers drop precipitously. So to give you an idea, we have from 5 to 11-year-olds, 0, but from 12 to 19-year-olds, it's 15%. It's 20 to 29-year-olds, it's only 26%. 30 to 49-year-olds, it's 88%, so it increases a little bit. So forgive me, skipped one. 50 to 64%, 50 to 64-year-olds, it's 51%, and it gets better with the older folks. It's 65 to 74 years and 75 years plus. It's at 71 and 73% in those age groups. Anyway, so our focus really is to get boosters out there as often, as much as possible, and also to get increase our pediatric numbers. I want to thank our public health nurses every chance I can get. That's Cindy Junker and Bridget Nelligan, who have been doing gangbusters work. I also want to put a shout out for Rachel Belisle-Toller from our office, who's been leading the charge on the pediatric clinics for us in the department, as well as the clinics that are going to be taking place at the Lady Good Voyage. So that's really a broad brush for everybody. I know it's a lot of information to kind of swallow as well. And probably the best thing to do is answer questions as best I can. I'll put that out there with the caveat that if I can't answer them, I'll take the questions down. I'll be happy to get back to you as soon as I can with an answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Max. Counselors, do you have questions? Counselor Grow.
A couple questions, Max. Thank you. First off, the testing rates are only PCR tests, correct? It's not, that doesn't count the rapid tests that people are doing, because I know that my guess is the numbers are a lot higher because people are rapid testing, but they're not necessarily going back in to get a PCR test.
That's absolutely true. So, and much to our consternation to a certain extent, the point behind that is the rapid tests aren't proctored. So in other words, they're not witnessed by somebody who is professionally trained to perform the test and make sure that it goes through the process correctly. It's an opportunity for the public to do an assessment on their own to discover whether or not they are actively dealing with the virus. And if that's the case, the hope is that they'll be doing, taking appropriate measures to protect themselves and especially their family and friends and the public by isolating properly and masking properly. So, but yeah, I mean, the estimates are, if you take the number that we have and double it, you're probably about right. Folks, along the same lines, and I apologize, I just want to throw this in there. Folks probably know that we test our wastewater for COVID through a company called BioBot. And it's been a pretty good indicator as to what's going on in the community. We're glad to say that those numbers are going down sharply. And however, they still remain pretty high above what our worst rates were last year. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that continues to go. And we're seeing we're down on the other side of this. But again, that's fingers crossed. Yes.
If I could, a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
How do our positivity rates relate to the state rates currently? And also, is there an expectation that the mask mandate will be continued through February? Because I understand the Board of Health meets again and they will reevaluate, but given the fact that we're still at pretty high rates, is the expectation that they'll continue on until things begin to subside significantly?
In terms of the state, in comparison with the state, we are usually a few points lower than the state average. I would have to look that up for you to know exactly, but by and large, whenever I've seen it, it's been a few points here or there on either side. In terms of the mask mandate, your guess is as good as mine. It's up to the board to decide that. I know that they will take the wastewater numbers, they'll take the infection rate numbers into account. There may be, and this is really just spitballing it, they may look at, instead of waiting month by month, meet again in a couple of weeks to see where things are rather than having people wait. So we'll see, but they're meeting next week.
Thank you, Max. Council Memard.
My question related to the BioBot sewage treatment, which Max has addressed. Thank you.
Councilors, any other questions? Councilor O'Neill.
Yes, you mentioned there's a clinic at the, a COVID vaccine clinic at Our Lady of Good Voice Church. Is that a flu clinic, flu vaccine as well?
If my nurses have anything to say about it, yes, they'll provide flu vaccine as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
One more thing, Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure.
Folks are probably aware, speaking of testing, aware of the curative site. We're happy to say they've done over 700 tests thus far. And yeah, they are starting to see a lowering in the number of people coming to or making appointments. So to that end, they have opened it up for walk-in. So, please let your constituents know that they don't necessarily, it's nice if they can make an appointment, but they don't need to, and they will do walk-up tests.
Great, thank you. Council Worthley.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
First of all, Max, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate the thoroughness. You said and I was taking down some notes, our positivity rate is 19%. I just looked, the Massachusetts state website, mass.gov, says the statewide percentage for positivity is 11.6. So if 19% is the right number and 11.4, we're more than 50% higher than the rest of the state. Is that cause for alarm?
Well, I would keep things in perspective. So it's based on the number of tests done, and we're looking at our own grouping. So out of 3,300 tests done, 19% of those were seen as positive. And now you're casting a broader net, and you're probably getting a reduction because of the population sampling that you're doing.
I understand how percentages work.
But I stick to what I had said previously. I mean, that's actually interesting that it went that low, but it also depends on how many people have been doing testing in other communities, et cetera.
Right, and it might mean that in other communities, they're doing at-home testing as well and not reporting them at that point.
That's true, sir, yes.
So the next question is there a way to communicate to the various, I'm going to say vendors, but wherever people are getting their at-home tests from, some sort of, you can't really make it a mandate, but some sort of a recommendation that they report their findings to the Board of Health? There's a lot of positives that come from reporting a positive case in terms of contact tracing and things like that. I don't even know where to begin, but it makes sense if there's some sort of, if you're buying your test at CVS, there's a little pamphlet that says, if you test positive, here's the number to call, so that we can do all the things that your office does in helping people know what they need to do to stay safe.
It's a double-edged sword. I agree that it's good to know what's going on in the community, absolutely. It is difficult because you're trusting and hoping that people have taken the test appropriately, that they're reporting factually. It's, anybody who's called up to let us know, it's good for us to know. We do give them the advice that we need to provide to anybody who tests positive. So we hope they do the right thing in terms of isolation and protecting their loved ones. But we could do some outreach, but it's we're at kind of some sort of limits in terms of our staffing capacity as it is,
I
in
understand.
terms of just dealing with PCR tests and following up with those cases. Right now, we have, like I said, our 2 part-time nurses. We also have 2 part-time contact tracers. But you're talking about, in this most recent batch, 249 folks that they're going to have to reach out to let them know, to advise them as to what to do, and then follow up on the other end of it to let them know that their quarantine is over or provide further advice if needed.
It's definitely a lot of work. I do know people are testing at home, and if they test positive, they might be super spreaders and we don't know it and they don't know it. You said that if you factor in the people who are taking at home tests, that we could double our positivity rate, and that would be 38%. That's a little alarming. If I mean, we could know that number.
Yeah, that's if people are taking the test, but we're keeping our fingers crossed that that's not the case at this point. Actually, you know, like I said, the wastewater numbers are what we kind of keep an eye on to fact check. But no, I think based on where we were last year with, you know, the alpha version of COVID, that we're still pretty high, but it is continuing to go down.
I commend your staff for the work that they've done. Thank you.
We've got a great team. I'm very proud.
Counselors, anyone else like to ask a question of Max? Counselor Majota. Can you unmute yourself? Awesome.
Hi,
Thank you.
Max. My question is pretty simple. I just want to make sure what to tell my constituents when walking up for the testing and what they need to provide.
They should just be able to walk up. I'm not even, well, you may need your ID, but I'm not even sure you need that. They don't have to have their health insurance, but if they do, that's fine. This is no cost to them. So, but it shouldn't be any heavy lifting in terms of what materials or anything that they have to have with them. But that's an excellent question. I'm not quite sure if they have to have an identification with them in order to, you know, ensure that they are who they say they are, essentially. But I can get that answer for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from counselors? Okay, thank you so much, Max, for coming and updating us. Oh, wait, Counselor Memard seems like he. Go ahead.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was just saying thank you to Max.
Okay, great. Yeah,
You're
Max,
welcome.
and please send back that message to your team and thank them for their hard work. We appreciate it.
I absolutely will. They'll enjoy hearing it. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Is the confirmation of new appointments. Chief Administrative Officer Jill Cahill, term to expire 2/14/24.
Great, thank you. And I'd like to welcome our mayor, Greg Verga, who would like to introduce his recommendation for this important position to lead the city. So take it away.
Thank you so much. Today we started our 4th week in office, and I don't know what I would have been doing without Jill there. Jill has the experience before she got to the city, and she has the experience of the last 4.5 years working for the city. That's been ideal and perfect to help us hit the ground running. I appreciate the 3-0 vote of support from the O&A committee. I urge the rest of the city council to vote in favor. Jill has been proven herself, and I am so pleased with the progress we've made so far, and I look forward to the next 700 and whatever many days left in this term with her by my side. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Jill, would you like to speak before we do the committee report?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to the O&A committee for your support. I asked for all of your support tonight. 4 weeks in, and I think we're off to a really good start. I couldn't be more excited and dedicated to working with this mayor. His principles of transparency and collaboration, planning and results He keeps me focused on that as we move through our very fast-paced days, and they're the guiding principles, and I'm dedicated to making those happen. We've had some great meetings with the city councilors so far. We look forward to meeting in person with all of you. And I think our department heads and our team are really looking forward to the next few years under our leadership too. So I look forward to working with you guys. I hope you'll support my appointment tonight. And I do want to make one side plug on behalf of the Community Development Department for a public participation meeting on February 2nd. You'll see it, if you haven't seen it yet, the Community Action Resilience Plan is currently being worked on by our planning team, primarily led right now by Gemma. And there is what I just posted on the city website, or the city Facebook page, and is also on the city website, is a survey. And on February 2nd, there is the next, and I'm looking to make sure I tell you the right things, is the next virtual community meeting. It's focused on goal setting. It's Wednesday, February 2nd, 6 to 7:15. There is a registration link on the website. And again, that's the Climate Action and Resilience Plan. So I thought I'd get that out there now, because sometimes there's a gap between when we get to speak to council and get that information out. So thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions also. Most of you know me, but for those who don't, I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Great, thank you. So Councilor Nolan, would you do the committee report? Can you take yourself off mute? Thank you.
The ordinance administration had voted by roll call 3 in favor, 0 opposed to recommend that the city council appoint J. Cahill as chief administrative officer, term to expire 2/14/24.
Second.
I was gonna move it.
So Councilor Nolan, did you move that?
I moved it after Jamie did. I'm having a little.
Okay, so Councilor Nolan moved it and Councilor O'Hara seconded it. Councilors, is there discussion? Councilor Worthley.
Thank you. I have our daughters share a school, although I have not seen Jill at Plum Cove. We've just kind of been two ships passing the night for the last few years. But I've learned about you. I've read about you. I think Mayor Verga is very lucky to have you, and we're all lucky to have you. There probably hasn't been someone as credentialed as you in this position in at least the last 25 years. So thank you for your service. The expectation in the bar is set high, though, with all that credentials. I look forward to working with you, and I have met with you once already. I just want to share with the council. It's been a very positive relationship already. I don't expect anything less going forward, but thank you for serving.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else like to speak? Councilor Gross.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of working with Jill on a few projects, and I can't speak highly enough about her. She is a consummate professional, well organized, brings a lot of experience and intelligence to this position. I think Greg made an outstanding choice on this. Jill has always kept me on my toes, and we've had a very honest and open relationship that's worked very well. And I see her just commanding her position with that same kind of dedication and honesty. So I can't say enough about this appointment, and I will obviously be voting in favor.
Great, thank you. Councilor Memhard.
I'd just like to follow up on my other councilors. I'm thrilled that Jill is going to be filling this capacity. I think she knows our city. She knows the municipal departments. She is hitting the ground running now as we speak, in 4 weeks in. I think that Mayor Verga has made an excellent selection, and that there'll be a smooth transition going forward. And I'm looking forward to working with her very, very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nolan.
I believe there's already been a smooth transition, and it's because of the expertise with Mayor Verga and Jill working as a team. From what I've seen in the last 6 years, going on 8 now, this is going to be a wonderful 2 years for us, and I'm really excited for this, and I definitely will be supporting Jill.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else like to speak? Counselor Grow.
You're going to do marvelous.
Anyone else? So I have two things I want to say. First of all, one of the most impressive things that I've encountered with this new mayor and the CAO is the first day on the job, the call out to me to sit down and lay out how everything in the city charter is going to work with this administration. And that included how we will deal with reorganizations, how we would deal with appointments to department heads. And it really felt good to have that partnership. Second, I would just mention a commitment that I see, in addition to me having had the pleasure of working with Jill for many years. Saturday morning, I think around 7:30, I got a message from Jill saying, we have this, the kiosks going to be suspended until the 24th. Can you make sure that you get this message out to the council and also make sure that the message is consistent? And that was already out there for us to just share with the public. And that type of transparency and communication is really second to none. So we appreciate that partnership that we already feel with the city council. And I am very happy to say that I will be supporting you. So without further conversation, I'd like to do a roll call vote. Councilor Grow,
Yes.
Councilor Majota,
Yes.
Councilor Memard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Absolutely.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilor Worthley,
Yes.
Councilor Gilman, yes. Councilor Gross.
Absolutely, yes.
The yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Congratulations to our new CAO.
Thank you. And that's a very high bar to set. So thank you for your faith in me. And I look forward to it. The mayor is a great partner, as well as everyone on this call. So it's going to be great. And just to follow up on the parking things, stay tuned for an update. DPW Director Mike Hale, John Dunn, myself, the mayor, and the Assistant Police Chief met today. Mike's done a great job of getting those kiosks up and working. So there will be further communication on that, hopefully tomorrow.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is the consent agenda.
Thank you. Councilors, if anyone wishes to pull any matter off the consent agenda, please explain.
I don't wish to. I don't wish
Go
to
ahead,
pull.
Councilor Gross.
I don't wish to pull something off. I just a clarification on the councilor orders. FCV, is that full council vote? So it's going to the full council next time. Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I would like to remove the management reappointments of our CFO, John Dunn, our assessor, Nancy Pappas, and our harbor master, TJ Shimataro. And I would just like to mention this and then we can vote. But I just wanted to take an opportunity to speak to these 3 unbelievably outstanding members of city staff. I will start with our CFO, John Dunn, who's on the call, who always is. And like to ask if any councilors on the call would like to say anything on behalf of John Dunn and his confirmation of his reappointment. Councilor Memard, you chair BNF, so
I would just like to express my gratitude to John and my confidence that our city finances are in his able hands. I've worked with him now for just over 6 years, and he instills a great sense of confidence. He has a lot of experience coming to bear. And again, I think that with John and his staff, our city is in very sound financial hands, and evidence is only in the capital surplus that we generated again this past year in our budget, which has just been approved by the state.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nolan.
John, thank you for everything. You're a wonderful man. You're well beyond expectations in your education to municipal finances, and we are lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? Counselor Gross.
Yeah, I've had, again, also the opportunity and privilege of working with John on for numerous things over the years, and have always been very impressed with the professionalism and the knowledge that he has on, municipal finances. And the proof is in the pudding when, the budget comes back the way it does and it's fully accounted for. So I just wanted to say, good job, John. Thank you.
Great. And I would just like to add that John has always been a true professional to work with, worked really closely with me personally on the betterment on Nashua Ave, always there to support, and runs a great budget process in partnership with Ken Costa, our auditor, and our B&F department, so Planning Standing Committee. So I'm just grateful, John, for your reappointment. So the next person that I'd like to comment on is, hold on. So this is a challenge when I'm using two screens, as we talked about in our governance meeting. But the next person I would like to comment on is our assessor, Nancy Pappas, whose term to be expired is February 14th, 2025. Councilor Nolan.
Nancy, one of the hardest working people in the city. Without a doubt, I've seen it firsthand. I know your dedication, and thank you for continuing to do what you're doing for us.
Well said. Any other comments from councilors? Thank you. Thank you, Nancy, for all your hard work.
Thank you.
And finally, we have our harbor master, TJ Shimataro, term to be expired on February 14th, 2025. And I'm sure Tony Gross would like to speak about the harbor master, seeing that he's been on the Waterways Board for a million years. So I'll let you just begin without even you raising your hand.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, TJ has been a wonderful addition, as been demonstrated by the change in the Harbor Master Department. The customer service rating is through the roof, and the amount of work that gets done every day there has been significantly increased and streamlined. And I don't want to speak for TJ, but I know that he's really done a great job, and he's very committed to Gloucester. And he's forged good relationships throughout all the departments in the city. And he's really been a great addition to us for the 5-6 years he's been here. It seems like it was just yesterday when this babe in the woods walked in the city council conference room on the first floor for his interview, and blew me away. So.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from councilors? Councilor Nolan.
I would have good things to say for him if he was here.
Well, he'll have to watch on Zoom tomorrow morning. Okay, so I would like to put those three matters back on the consent agenda and ask councilors, is there anyone that would like to accept the consent agenda as is?
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Memard has moved it and Councilor Worthley has seconded it. Let's do a roll call. Councilor Grow.
We have discussion first, actually. I have a question.
Okay.
I'm still struggling with the agenda as it's laid out. The mayor's report is not part of the consent agenda any longer. Is that the way it is? Are we accepting the whole thing here?
We are.
Okay, so we accept the entire, the confirmation of reappointments, the mayor's report, et cetera.
That is correct.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Just wanted to be clear on that. I vote yes.
Great. Council Majota,
Yes.
Council Memard,
Yes.
Council Nolan,
Yes.
Council O'Hara,
Yeah, yes.
Council O'Neill,
Yes.
Council Worthley,
Yes.
Council Gilman, yes. Council Gross,
Yes.
the yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
You have a unanimous consent calendar that came in late.
Thank you. So the unanimous consent agenda is in order from Council O'Hara that the Gloucester Code of Ordinances, Chapter 21, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Section 21-19, removal of snow from sidewalks, and Section 21-20, removal or covering of ice from sidewalks, be amended by adding homeowners above the age of 60 years old shall be exempt. And he is requesting that this be referred to Ordinances and Administration Standing Committee meeting for review and recommendation to the City Council. And would anyone like to further discuss that or make a motion to support that referral?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion by Council Memard, seconded by Council O'Hara. Is there a discussion? Let's do a roll call
Madam
vote.
President, may I explain?
Of course, thank you.
Sure, thank you. The reason for this is with the present state of the city, state, country dealing with COVID and employees, snow removal vendors are having great difficulty finding employees to remove snow, shovel snow. The city, the state, other cities are having trouble finding plow operators due to the lack of employees. With that, actually many constituents have contacted me that they've reached out to landscapers, contractors to hire them to shovel their sidewalks, and they will not accept any work. Unfortunately, I had an experience. I sit on the Magnolia Library Board. We hired a vendor to remove our snow from the January 7th snowstorm, which, as you know, wasn't a great snowstorm. And that vendor charged the Magnolia Library $465. So the prices are very much inflated, and I don't think it's reasonable for our seniors to have to worry about who they're going to hire, if they can hire, or if they can find somebody. They're potentially having to pay inflated costs to remove that snow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. So we have a motion to accept the unanimous consent agenda and a second. Let's do a roll call vote. Council Grow,
Referral, yes.
Council Majota,
Yes.
Council Memard,
Yes.
Council Nolan,
Yes.
Council O'Hara,
Yes.
Council O'Neill,
Yes.
Council Worthley,
Yes.
Council Gilman, yes. Council Gross.
Yes.
The yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Is the Budget and Finance Standing Committee report of January 20th.
Council Memard,
We're letting you all off light tonight. We do have one public hearing, and then we have the CPA presentations, but we had a good meeting, but we have no items before the council for your consideration or vote. Thank you.
thank you, Councilor.
Enjoy it while we do.
Madam Clerk, next order of business.
The Special Ordinance and Administration Standing Committee meeting of January 18th.
Council Nolan,
We had a special meeting. We got to talk to and work with a lot of reappointments. It was wonderful, but there are no items under this heading for tonight. Thank you.
thank you, Councilor. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
The Planning and Development Standing Committee report of January 19th.
Counselor
because-
Crowe.
yes.
Rowe, sorry.
Unlike my fellow chairs on their subcommittees, I do like to hear my voice, so I will be speaking tonight on a couple of things. We have nothing on the as far as items, but there are a couple of recaps that I'd like to bring up, and then also go over the ward meeting schedule that's coming up for the zoning amendment changes that have been on the agenda. Just so that people know, we had a site visit at the Concord Street rezoning. We had a number of residents at the site visit, and we will bring that back at the next P&D subcommittee meeting, along with the planning board's recommendation. And then that will be up for public hearing on the 8th of February. The ward meeting schedule, as everyone has heard now so far, we have 5 ward meetings coming up over the next 2 weeks. Very quickly for people who are listening, tomorrow on the 26th at 5:30, these are all 5:30 meetings. Ward 2 with Tracy O'Neill, and will be co-hosted by Councilor Scott Memhard. The 27th on Thursday will be Ward 5 with Sean Nolan and Val Gilman. Then next week, is it next week? Yes, 2/7, Monday, Ward 3, Frank Margiotta, and will be co-hosted by me. On the 9th of Wednesday will be Ward 4 with Val Gilman and Tony Gross. And on the 10th will be Ward 1 with Scott Memhard and yours truly. There will be no snacks provided. We are really encouraging people to attend these meetings, especially those people who live in each of the wards. You are, as residents of the city, you're entitled to attend any meeting you want to, but we would hope that you give preference in terms of the overall conversation to those people who actually live in the wards. Obviously, if you have property, you have interest in a ward, but these are really designed for people to interact with their ward counselor and hopefully get as much information, express their viewpoints. If they have questions, hopefully those questions can be asked and answered to the best of anybody's ability that's attending. But I do invite you to attend these meetings. I think they're important. You'll get a little bit more information repeated from Greg Cantamatore's presentations. And there are some meetings that will be attended with planning board members, so they might be able to offer some insight to the various changes that are being proposed. So that's that. This is on the city website. The first 2, Ward 2 and Ward 5, the Zoom meeting links are on the website. The city website, so you can go there and click on there, and you'll get right to the meetings tomorrow and the next day. That's about it.
Great, thank you, Counselor. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Order of business is the first public hearing 2021-32, rezoning application 2021-003 in accordance with the Gloucester zoning ordinance section 111. 2 parentheses A, amend Gloucester zoning ordinance sections 2.3.1 residential uses, 3.2 dimensional table, 3.2.2 dimensional requirements for multifamilies and their accessory uses other than signs, and section 3.1.6 parentheses B, building heights in excess of 35 feet.
So I'd like to open the public hearing and continue it until February 22nd, 2022. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Is public hearing 2022-001, the rezoning application of 2021-004 Concord Street, number 44R and 44, map 229, lot 2, from R20 low medium residential to EB extensive business.
I'd like to open that public hearing and continue it until February 8th, 2022. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Is public hearing 2022-002, loan order 2022-001, loan authorization request in the amount of $1,400,000 for the purchase of water and sewer meters.
I'd like to open the public hearing and ask if the applicant would like to speak in favor.
Good evening, Madam President. Mike Hale, Public Works Director. How are you this evening?
Great. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. So water meters, the enterprise fund, both water and sewer, are the calculations are generated by everyone's water meter that's located generally in people's basements. Water meters have a shelf life of 10 to 15 years before they become inaccurate. And they become inaccurate on the low side. They misread low. So we don't collect what we need for water and sewer revenue. We haven't had a robust meter replacement program in the 22 years I've been with the city. It's time that we start replacing them at a little faster pace than we've been doing the last couple of years. We've been fortunate to get a few $100,000 over the past, I believe, 3 years to set to attack the need to replace these meters. It's not just the meter itself. Each home has a radio frequency read device that's located on the outside of the home for the most part. As we drive by the city, those transmit the use based on the account. And we're also looking to get some remote data collectors for meter reading. For any of the realtors in the audience, if you have a closing, you request a final read from Public Works. We have to send someone out to your home and do the final read. By having these remote data collectors, we're constantly getting pings from all the radio reads in the city, so we have real-time data. Now, it's not for the purposes of a real estate closing, but if there's a water main break or a service break, or what happens frequently is someone goes on vacation and a pipe breaks in their home, or the irrigation isn't winterized and it breaks in the yard. Well, they come back from Florida and we don't know that it's broken. They find out, they fix it. Next quarter, they get a $10,000 water bill for water that they did not use. And it's difficult to abate all that because the water was used. It went to the yard or the basements. Unaccounted for water is a serious issue in the city of Gloucester. Unaccounted for water is the water that's produced, distributed, consumed, but not billed and not identified as where it went. Gloucester's unaccounted for water a few years ago was up to 27%. So 27% of the water that we create, or we treat, isn't running through anyone's meters, or if it is, it's not being calibrated correctly. These aged residential meters are probably reading somewhere between 70 and 83, 84% accurate, meaning that you're leaving that much revenue uncollected. Our water distribution permits and our water treatment permits are predicated on having a lower unaccounted for water percentage. And we're really working hard to identify leaks, calculate, fire or water flushing of hydrants, whatever it may be that we use water for is consumed in the system that may not run through someone's residential meter. We're trying to do a better job of that. So the data collectors, meters, RFs will really get us to a point where we're collecting what people use. Now, the question is, are people going to be paying more? If you use more, you pay more. And this will get us to an accurate reading for that. And it's not a complete citywide replacement yet. This is about as big a bite as we can chew at once, and we will do the best we can to make this work. Lots of questions, I'm sure, but I'll leave it at that.
You're muted, Val.
There was some noise and I was trying to make sure it wasn't me. So John, I'd love to hear from you.
And yes, I completely agree with Mike that, what happens is that we lose lots of water because of, the meters run slow. So when meters get old, they run slow, as he said. And then, all of a sudden we have to be able to say, where did that water go?
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Let me just look over here at the attendees. Hold on. Nope. Seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak in opposition? Seeing none. Joanne, are there any communications?
There are no communications.
Thank you. Counselors, are there any questions that you have? Council Worthley.
Thank you. I'm on the Budget and Finance Committee and voted for this, and I will tonight, but I have a question that didn't come up at the committee level. So I just want to ask this question to Mike. Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that there's 27% of water that's unaccounted for. Does that mean that ratepayers, the other amount of water, that the other ratepayers are paying more to cover the costs of that 27%? So once we identify that 27% is, obviously the people who are using that will be billed, but it's going to reduce the expectation from the rest of us, the rest of the people who aren't using it.
Mike, would you
That make
like
any
to
sense?
respond?
See if I can kind of, you broke up a little bit, Jeff. I'm not sure that's me or you. What leaves the filtration plants is considered 100%. We have master meters and we add up east and west at the end of every reporting year. And so if we're going to be producing, let's just use 650 million gallons of water annually, we're only billing 77% of that, or 73% of that, meaning we're not capturing the revenue. So it just makes it 73% more expensive the following year. Because we have to, again, the enterprise fund, the expenditure and the revenue are supposed to meet somewhere pretty close. You typically like to run a little bit of a surplus in the revenue to allow a little bit of an operating cushion for repairs. And, you know, if we had a robust meter program that was just done annually over the last 20 years, we wouldn't be here. So the reality is, if we can capture this, I don't know if it's going to make a significant difference at 100% of the water rate, because again, there's so much still to do in the water distribution system to make it function as well as it should.
So you answered my question in part. I just want to try to, it's more of an understanding. If 73% of the water is not being billed, does that mean that the ratepayers who are being billed are paying more for the water that's not being billed? If that makes any sense, is that can transfer to the ratepayers equally?
I don't know if it's a one-for-one measurement here, and John may be able to weigh in on this somewhat, but again, it's when we bill on what the meters read, and not necessarily what came out of the plant, but we're still leaving that 27% on the table, so to speak. And again, that 27% isn't all just lost water through old meters. I mean, flushing, you lose water. Fires, you lose water. A water main break, you lose water. And we calculate all those based on pipe diameter, how long the break was, how big the break was, pipe pressure. There's a lot of factors that go into determining how we calculate that gallonage. I think it's always the next year, because now you may run a deficit in that water fund, and how do you make that up? And that's maybe, again, an accounting question or a treasurer's question and a collection question for John. But I don't think it's a one-for-one. I don't think that the other 73% are paying directly for that 27% in a given year. It's just, it's a cumulative issue that we don't completely capture what people are consuming and what we're producing.
Okay, and I have just one last question, Madam Chair, if I may. I assume the answer is no, but do we bill the schools and the city offices, all the water that's consumed there? And if not, do we have any clue as to what percentage of the 27% that's part of it?
So we do not bill ourselves for water usage or sewer usage. We know how much they use. Something that we did a number of years ago, we metered irrigation systems in the city, ball fields, parks, so forth. So we actually we try to hone in this number of years ago. And this number fluctuates year to year. It's not a static 27%. One year it was very low, and I suspect that was a calculation error more than we did a really good job. So we do know what they use, and we do speak with the fire department after fire. You know, where do you draw your water from? A certain hydrant, a certain part of the city. We know what it's flowing at. How long are they fighting the fire for? Again, it's a lot of this is somewhat of a guessing game because I don't know how long they had the fire hose on, you know, full blast. So you try to calculate the best you can, and you know, we're talking millions of gallons of water, not tens of gallons. So it's not necessarily a rounding error, but you try to capture as much as you possibly can based on what you know.
Thank you, Mike. And could everyone mute themselves if you're not talking? So, because we have a lot of background noise, and it would be great if you would do that. Are there any other questions, counselors? Let's see, Counselor O'Neill.
Yes, hi, thank you. So this is in order to purchase meters. Do you know how long it will take for them to arrive? How long, is it 6 months out, 18 months out, do you know?
We have spoken to our vendor about available stock, and the stock is relatively available for this purpose. One good thing is we get this order in by February 1st, I'll save about 16% because the price is going up. So that's one reason we try to move this a little bit further along.
Okay. Thank you. And I have another question. Will every household have their meters replaced? And who pays for the manpower to replace them? Is it, do we get a bill for that? I would imagine we do, right?
So not every house will be done under this program. This is not a citywide meter replacement program. You need to move the decimal for that.
Okay.
We set appointments up with individual homeowners to access their meter, and we replace it. It's a part of the water enterprise to an enterprise utility division staff that does that work.
And how do you determine whose meter? Is it the oldest meter, or is there a special program?
So certainly some of the oldest meters in the city have limited. So it's not just the meters, it's also the radio frequency reads on the side of the homes, because the oldest ones fail and we have to you have to go back to the home, and it's not just a battery change out. There's no data that we can log based on those. It just reads a straight number. So it's a mix. Yeah, you take a look at some of the older meters themselves because the older meters are running the slowest. A good analogy, maybe it's not a good analogy, but a simple analogy is you have a 10-speed bicycle and you can pedal fast and it goes far. Over time, those wheels shrink down to the size of a tricycle wheel. You can imagine how little distance you gain by pedaling hard. And so the same thing with the water meter, it's a small disc or wheel that spins. When that wears over time, it doesn't read accurately, it actually reads slow. And we can, based on the age of the meter and the number of gallons that have gone through it, we can run a program to determine exactly the loss of that meter if we choose to. Then we can bench test it afterwards to verify the calculation based on just some data that we have and the actual, because they're usually close.
Great,
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Grow. You are muted.
There we go. Sorry. The $1.4 million that we're approving tonight is going to affect how many households moving and over what time period? Because my guess is that we want to get all of the deficient meters replaced at some point. And then I'll just ask the second question, which is, this doesn't just affect water rates because your sewer bill is rated against your water usage. So if you're actually having increased accountability on the water usage, you're going to have a corresponding increase on your sewage charges, correct?
That is correct. Water and sewer are directly related when you're on municipal sewer. So if you are consuming, well, the consumption doesn't change. It's just the calculation is accurate to what you have consumed. The number of homes, we have about 13,000 water accounts in the city. We've replaced a few thousand water meters in the past couple of years. This will get us a few thousand more. And also but much more on the radio frequency reads. We'll get many more of those replaced. And again, that's a very important piece of this, because we can accurately get information just driving by. I mean, we can drive by certain portions of the city, and if you drive in Councilor Gilman's ward, you can pick up most of the Wingashiek Beach area just from Washington Street. The older reads don't do that. So again, you wind up driving a lot more, spending a lot more time. The last read we probably had about 300 no reads out of 13,000. It's not a bad number, but those 300 no reads, meaning you need to go back, you need to make appointments. And 300 appointments is tough to get done during the last few weeks of a billing and submission to Sean's department for the water and sewer bills.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions for our Public Works Director? Councilor Memhard. Can you unmute? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. And thank you too to Joe Lucido, who did a great job at Budget and Finance presenting on your behalf on this matter. And I know that the city has been working with you on an ongoing program to try and keep these up to date and current, and to address the wear and tear and age that impacts our ability to track appropriate water usage. One of the comments, if I understood him correctly, Mr. Lucido said that this funding will also address some software upgrades relating to the tracking and billing of the water usage. And he also made mention that I'd like clarification on it, that if not now, relatively soon, based on our unaccounted for water loss, the state may impose penalties as well upon the city for things that are not accounted for. So there's an additional incentive for us to track as responsibly as we can our water usage in the city.
So yes, this authorization does go to the data collectors. The software that we're currently operating will no longer be supported after 2022. So we need to upgrade to the next level of software. Having software that's not supported by the vendor puts us in a bad position. So we, again, like all software, you're kind of forced to upgrade to the latest and greatest. So we will be doing that. The state has come down hard on unaccounted for water. The concern of water shortages statewide, drought conditions, and/or the fluctuations with climate change of extremely wet seasons, then extremely dry seasons. It may balance off in the end, but a full reservoir is a full reservoir. It doesn't matter how much it rains, it can't hold any more. We're not building new reservoirs frequently in the Commonwealth right now. We did that many years ago. So wet is wet, and once you're full, you're 100%, but the extended dry seasons could certainly be an issue. So we want to make sure that we capture as much as we can. We've really spent a lot of time with this in the last couple of years. We went through all the large meters in the city. The rate of returns on these large meters is as short as 8 months. You're spending $3,000 to $4,000 on a 3 or 4 inch meter, and it pays for itself in less than half a year. These residential meters have a little bit longer rate of return, but it's not multiple years. It may be a year and some change, but they still pay for themselves over time pretty quickly.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Gross. Councilor Gross.
Thank you. Mike, what's a reasonable percentage, or average percentage to lose?
I'm sorry, Councilor, you broke up. I heard a reasonable percentage and I didn't hear any more.
Reasonable percentage of loss.
Single digits.
Okay. And since we have, how much of our infrastructure is still pretty antiquated or older? I know we've been replacing a lot of it.
Older is a difficult measurement here. I mean, I think we base it on a classification of pipe material more than anything. So the oldest water system we have would be just straight cast iron water main. And then you get to a cement lined ductile iron style water main. We're probably about 60, 66% modern style water main in the city. which isn't too bad. We've taken a lot of bites of this in the past 10 years. I have, before the administration, a number of other water projects that are necessary to get done in the near future. And we just got to keep plugging away to get down that, that 35% old water main out of the way, because that is a vulnerable point in our distribution system.
Yeah, sort of going to fed into the next question, which you probably can't answer, is, how much are we losing in our own pipes? But I'll leave that one alone. Don't bother.
Well, I mean, again, just that to separate that 27% between someone's irrigation breaking or winter, pipes freezing in their house when they're on vacation, unmetered water. I think unmetered water is probably the largest amount, because we do leak detection frequently in the city. And you wouldn't know what we're doing. We're out at night with these listening devices. You place them in various areas, and when the water main should be quiet, we can record it as being quiet. But if there's any, it's a kind of like an EKG. When the line kind of goes up because water makes a noise as it goes to a leak, you can pinpoint that leak. So we spent a fair amount of time on leak detection citywide. We haven't found any major leaks just that go undiscovered. Most of them come to the surface.
Yeah, I just want to echo Councilor Memard's. Joe did a really good job at BNF. It seems like it's 6,500 new meters we're purchasing here, as well as some commercial meters. And the software, actually, we also are going to be contracted with that company too, right? So the software will not expire. Will just progress as the contracts go. Is that the?
And generally speaking, there's an annual fee that we pay for it, but just like the software we have now is supported, but it won't. That particular version will not be supported after this year, so it's time for us to jump.
Yeah, and so like anything, we always have to purchase that initial piece, but we have the maintenance program that we've been with them for.
And we want to make sure it ties in neatly to Munis, because that's our financial software, and the implementation of Munis did not go well with our current software. It took a lot of manual labor, and 13,000 accounts might not sound like a lot, but it's very tedious when two people have to review 13,000 accounts and truth numbers that are this long to make sure the accounts are accurate.
Right. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions, councilors? Councilor Grow, would you unmute yourself, please?
I talk to myself all the time. I hear myself in my head. Mike, can you go back a little bit and re-clarify that what we're really talking about is, in terms of lost water, is not lost water, but lost revenue from unmetered water? Because one of the issues that's been coming up a lot in our zoning discussions is that the concern is that we don't have enough resources to supply water and septic or sewer to our residents. You're not talking about lost water. You're talking about water we're just not billing for.
The official regulatory term is unaccounted for water, meaning we produced it, but we don't know where it went. Meaning it could have gone through meters. It could be consumed by firefighting efforts, flushing, but we calculate that. And again, of that 27%, we know where part of it goes. We know that approximately what we do for firefighting. We know approximately what we do for hydrant flushing. But there's a good chunk out there that is just not captured in any way. I mean, it's not like it's leaking in the street or leaking in someone's home. It's just not accounted for, meaning what goes to the water. Just picture your water bill at your home. You're only capturing 80% of what goes through it. That 20%, that's a big number. And you start stringing that out over 60%, 70% of the water meters in the city, it adds up pretty quickly.
Right. But it's lost revenue, not lost water. I mean, that water's been used.
It's been used. Exactly. It is lost revenue, both water and on the sewer side, because we're treating that sewer. Again, if you're on municipal sewer, we're just not billing for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Majota, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So with us having like one of the highest rates nationwide, like what is this going to cost us? And with the potential new plant, are we going to see a hike with our water?
We don't have the highest rate on Cape Ann.
Meeting.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We don't have the highest rate on Cape Ann, let alone the world. That was something that was printed in the paper years ago with no real research done behind it. Our water rates are not inexpensive, that's for sure, but they're not the highest anywhere. Will, I think you were speaking of the secondary.
No, it just got kicked off, Pat.
Oh, I think,
You know, the,
I think we need to mute John. There we go. If you were speaking of the new wastewater component, secondary treatment, how will that be funded? I think that's a discussion that hasn't been determined. I don't think the rate could support the total cost of that. We'd need to look at other means of paying for that.
Okay, and one last question. What are the other cities, if we're 27%, what are other cities running, close to us? Beverly, Rockport, Salem, what do they run at?
It varies from year to year, and it varies community to community. What is their staff levels as far as how close are they looking at this? Are they dissecting everything, or are they reporting accurately? We try to report accurately because it doesn't do us any good to kind of fudge the numbers. But I've certainly sat through conversations where other directors have said, well, we write a number down to keep the state off our back. Not what we do. We're honest about it. We've had good numbers and we've had bad numbers, but we seem to have more bad numbers than good when it comes to this. And again, it's really the fact that we are so far behind in replacing water meters. I mean, the last major replacement program was the mid to late 1990s. It's been too long. We just can't do that. We wonder why we are failing infrastructure, but we don't invest in it. It's pretty obvious why.
Okay.
Thank you. Counselors, any more questions? Oh, geez. Okay. Let's go back to Counselor O'Neill and let's try to maybe make it one question right now because we've been on this for a long time. Go ahead.
The cost of the water meters themselves, is that going to be carried on to the, distributed to the homeowners, or does the city absorb that, or how does that work?
So the loan order is both water and sewer. The cost of the meters is paid for by this loan order and is tied back to the two enterprise funds. If we send you a notice saying that, Ms. O'Neill, we need to replace your water meter, can we get in on Tuesday at 9 o'clock? You say yes. You don't get a bill for us being there. The carrot is, over a certain period of time, that meter will pay for itself through revenue.
So we don't pay for the labor, but we pay for the meter, or homeowners pay for the meter.
You do not receive a bill from this process other than your traditional water and sewer bill.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Council Worthley.
Yes. Hang on. Okay, I'm not muted. This question is for Mike, and I asked this at the committee level. Joe Lucido did a fantastic job in your absence, but there's one question he didn't have the answer to. He may have provided it to us since the meeting. I haven't seen it though. The question is, do we have a warranty? And if so, how long is that on this purchase for the meters we get? I think the software is, as you said, annual, but the meters and anything else that's associated with this.
So we use a brand of water meter called Neptune meters. We're reluctant to switch vendors just because we have 13,000 units already in the system. I couldn't go before the council and ask for 13,000 new water meters. The number would be crazy. So we stick with the vendor we have. They are incredible with support and they stand behind their products. We switched to all brass, no lead meters long before the state told us we had to. Neptune was ahead of the curve as far as manufacturing all brass meters, no lead. So if we have an issue, they're always there for us. We haven't had any issues with that. The RFs, you know, it's a small radio frequency read. It has a 9-volt battery in it. They last, battery wears, replace the battery. At some point, you have to toss the radio read because they're just no longer serviceable. The software, we have a contract with the software manufacturer, and they service it as needed. Any patches or updates. And they were very supportive in our transition to Munis because they'd import a lot of information in a very crude way. You're taking 13,000 account numbers and you're importing it into a database that didn't support the database that we had. So they were very helpful for us on that. And the larger data collectors, they will service those. I mean, there'll be a traditional warranty, and then there'll likely be some sort of outside the box, you know, extended warranty that we'll have to, you know, will factor into the total price.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for the committee report. Councilor Memard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You want me to read the motion at this time?
Yes, please. Thank you.
On a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Gross, the Budget and Finance Committee voted by roll call, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council approve the following loan order as follows. And this is where I now miss Councilor Cox, who had the pleasure of reading 5 of these loan orders at her last meeting here last year. Ordered, number 1, that the City of Gloucester appropriate $1,400,000 to pay costs associated with the acquisition of water, sewer meters, and data collection equipment and software, including the costs incidental or related thereto. And to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The mayor and any other appropriate official of the city are authorized to apply for, accept, expend any grants or gifts that may be available to the city to pay the costs of the projects, and any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such amounts, such costs by a like amount. And further ordered, that the treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify under Chapter 44A of general laws, any or all of the bonds authorized by this order, and to provide such information and to execute such documents as the Municipal Finance Oversight Board may require for these purposes. And it's my pleasure to move. So move.
You have a Council Memard has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Council Worthley has seconded it. Councilors, is there a discussion? Councilor Nolan.
Mike, thank you for your hard work on this. It's definitely the best decision for the city.
Thank you. Any other councilors like to discuss this? Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor Grow.
Yes.
Councilor Majota.
Yes.
Councilor Memard.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman. Yes. Councilor Gross.
Yes.
The yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, Mike, for a long night. Appreciate it. And John Dunn for being here tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is public hearing 2022-003, the recommendations from the Community Preservation Committee, round 12, FY21.
Thank you. So tonight, we are going to be doing 9 public hearings for the 9 projects. What the process will be is that we will, let me just make sure that I've got this right. We will be presenting each one. We will open up for a public hearing, and then we will do a committee recommendation after each one. So, Madam Clerk, please announce the first project.
Okay, the presentation is going to be by each project, or you're going to have Pamela Toby do the whole presentation first?
We're gonna open the public hearing first and hear from Pamela first.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. It's all right. I'll do this. So project number 1 is the Saunders House Stabilization Project, Sawyer Free Library, in the amount of $81,697. And I'd like to open the public hearing and ask for someone to speak in favor.
Hi, everyone. I'll kick it off. My name is Pam Toby. I am the co-chair for the Community Preservation Committee. So we have a bunch of projects and we'll go through them one by one. If you guys will just bear with me, I'll share my screen so you can see the PowerPoint presentation with just the general information for each project. Sorry, bear with me. It has been a really long time since I've used PowerPoint.
It's good to have you here, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So the first project up is the Saunders House Stabilization Project. So this project is for, it'll include structural engineering, mural conservation, and masonry and timber frame restoration. The total cost of the project is $163,395. And the amount requested and recommended by the committee is $81,697. This project is eligible as a historic preservation project. So that's just my little spiel, and I'm happy to turn it over to someone from the library if they are on to speak as well.
Great, thank you, Pam. Would anyone else like to speak in favor? I see no hands raised. Would anyone like to speak in opposition? Oh, I think I see someone from the Sawyer Free Library that would like to speak. Would you state your name and your position? That's great.
Hi, this is Jenny Benedict. I'm the library director from the Sawyer Free Library. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We very much appreciate the Community Preservation Committee's recommendation of approval of this project. As mentioned, it's a stabilization project. It is the very start of the restoration and renovation of the Saunders House. Important work that we do at the beginning of this project. And yeah, I think I'm happy, just wanted to speak briefly, but I'm happy to answer any questions that councilors may have.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for being here. Would anyone else like to speak in favor? Would anyone like to speak in opposition? Seeing none. Is there any correspondence, Joanne?
There are no communications now.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Grow?
I don't actually have a question. I'll wait till deliberations for that.
Okay. Councilors, this is our opportunity to ask questions. Councilor Memard.
Not directly related to the library project, but for the benefit of constituents that are watching and for our new councilors. Perhaps after we vote on this initial of the 9 applications tonight, Pam Toby might speak on behalf of her committee and explain for us all a little bit about the CPA program and the funding surcharge on our taxes and the match by the state and how it's designated between the 4 different categories for the benefit of the community. I think a little background for the overall program would be very helpful.
Okay, and are you comfortable doing that at the end of the 9 matters, Councilor Memard?
I would suggest perhaps doing it after we voted on the library, but before we proceed to the other 8.
Okay, sounds great. Any further questions, councilors? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for Councilor Memard to do the committee report.
And it's my pleasure to do so. On a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor John McCarthy. So this is last year's term. The Budget and Finance Committee voted by a roll call of 3 in favor, 0 opposed to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $151,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended to us by the Community Preservation Committee for the purpose of providing funding to, well, that's Ocean Alliance, so excuse me. 1. Saunders House.
Twice, there you go.
Yeah. So the appropriation is an amount of $151,000.
No,
yeah, it's misstated.
Madam Chair, it's double printed.
I apologize. The amount is $81,697 from the Preservation Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funds for the Sawyer Free Library for the purpose of supporting the historic preservation of the Saunders House project. And I so move.
Second.
Thank you, Council. We have a motion by Councilor Memard. I believe it was Councilor Grow. Did I hear that correctly?
A second. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a discussion, councilors? Councilor Grow.
I just want to say that, one, I think it's delightful to see the second generation of the Toby dynasty on a public board here doing civic good. And I appreciate all that you and the rest of the committee, the CPA are doing. And I'm looking forward to the explanation. I have some questions about where we are in funding and all that, but it's great to see you. A wise elder statesman once told me, though, that friends don't let friends do PowerPoint. And I believe that you know him. So say hi to your dad.
I will. Thank you.
And he's on the call, so.
Is he? Oh, good, good.
It's a lot of pressure. Oh, geez.
There you go.
Mayor and ex-city councilor for a million years on the call, so isn't that nice?
I think he would bridle at 1,000,000 years, maybe 750,000 years.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilor Gross.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam President. So this, I also see in this that it's for not just for the stabilization, but for preserving the murals too, which I think is highly important. That needs to be known. And this is coming to us where it was voted so early in subcommittee because it had to wait for certification of free cash. So I just wanted everyone to know that that's why the dates are so, October 7th was when this went through subcommittee. So I just want to make that clarification and keep up the good work. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in discussion? Councilor Nolan.
It was good to hear Councilor McCarthy's name tonight. That was nice. I do want to thank Councilor Memhard for working through the 2-part, supposed to be 1-part motion that worked out well. And I do want to thank Pam for all the work. And definitely it's nice to see Mayor/Councilor Toby on the call as well.
Thank you. Any other further discussion? Okay, I think we're ready for a roll call vote. Councilor Grow.
Yes.
Councilor Majota.
Yes.
Councilor Memard.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman. Yes. Councilor Gross.
Yes.
The yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Okay, before we open the second public hearing, we'd like to ask Pam to tell us just in a couple of minutes, if you could just tell us about who's on the call, maybe that is part of your the CPC, which I think is really good for us to know, and any of the information that you feel is important for us as a council. We have 5 new counselors. Some of them have been counselors before, but I think it's a great opportunity to hear a little bit from you. And I see your co-chair, Matt Lumberg, is also on the call. So take it away and tell us about you.
Of course. So the Community Preservation Committee is a funding opportunity for community organizations and nonprofits to apply for funds for certain kind of projects that fall within open space, historic preservation, recreation, and affordable housing. This fund, this money comes from a 1% surcharge on property taxes from everyone. The city voted to be a part of this. It could be up to 3%, and those funds are matched by the state. So 10% each year is dedicated to each category. So 10% is dedicated to open space, 10% to historic preservation, 10% to, you know what I mean? And then the rest of it goes into a general fund. So, you know, we don't always get affordable housing applications, but we do tend to get a lot of historic preservation applications. So that 10% for historic preservation typically gets utilized pretty fast. But on the committee, we have some great committee members. We have 4 at-large members that are appointed by the mayor's office. We have someone from the planning board, someone from open space and recreation, historic commission, housing authority, and then the conservation commission. So we have some great minds to kind of evaluate every application and where the need is. And so it's an amazing committee, and we have been able to fund some really incredible projects. You'll hear about some of them tonight, but it's been amazing to be a part of, and I appreciate all of your support for this. So
great. Thank you so much, Pam.
Of course.
Council Member, do you have anything to add? Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pam, and your committee, and those who have served before you on the Community Preservation Committee for Gloucester. It really is a tremendous resource for us to invest back into our community, and it's your wise minds and hands that guide that allocation. So thank you. I believe actually the foresight for implementing community preservation in Gloucester was due to Mayor John Bell, who made the proposal and got the city to approve that. In my mind, it's unfortunate it's only at 1% rate, whereas our neighbor at Rockport is a 3% rate, and the city's funding by taxpayers is for a 3% community funded again and again by the state. And as was reported to us recently by Kenny Costa, our city auditor, while the matching funds were quite significant in the early years, as more communities have gotten on this bandwagon and seen this opportunity, finally including Boston, you know, the percentage of the match has dropped quite significantly. But this coming year, it'll be up around 40% or 43%. So that's a fantastic match and leverage of our investment at 1% to have that city join us in helping to fund these projects. So again, thank you to the work of the committee.
Great, thank you. Councilor Grow, do you have a question for Pam? Can you unmute yourself?
I just want to add to what Scott said. I was delighted when the CPA was brought forward, what it's been now 12, 15 years now. I was disheartened that we didn't go at a higher rate. We've left literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, on the table. We do incredible things with this funding. It benefits our community, absolutely. And you know, one of the things I would like to ask Pam is where we are in terms of our balances in the various funds, because if we don't have an affordable housing application, that money is set aside and held on for later. But one quick comment I would make is that for all the talk that people have been talking about, both in the campaign, but also from communications from people. Everybody's really, really concerned about affordable housing. Here was an opportunity for us to apply our own funding and state matches to programs that would directly benefit the creation and establishment, creation, and maintenance of affordable housing in this community, and we turned it down. And I would hope that at some point the city would reconsider raising that to the full 3% rate, so that we could actually put this money back into our community. But I would be interested to hear about what you have in terms of balances in the other accounts.
Of course.
If you have them.
Yeah, I do actually. I didn't want to bother you all with this slide, but I do have a budget slide just that I'll pull up so you all can see it. So you can see in what's where. So as of yesterday, this is where the accounts kind of stood for each individual category, and then where they would be after, if everything was approved for funding tonight. So we still have a decent amount. I mean, again, historic preservation is kind of, dwindled down, but we have there's a lot in the community housing reserve, as well as open space and recreation. We don't see as many applications in those categories, but we have a good amount still left in the general reserve.
Thank you.
Of course.
Pam, has if there are ways that we can help you, the CPC, to enlighten the community with these opportunities for grants, and particularly the areas that we don't have as many applications as perhaps we'd like, let us know. Develop something, put it on Facebook, let us circulate it, and with your link to how the process goes. And we're very happy to help you do that. And I'm sure the mayor's office would echo that. So we're all in this together. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was going to make a little plug at the end. We have another cycle of funding applications obviously coming up. So we'll definitely share whatever information we can with you all. So we can get the word out there. So thank you. That's very nice of you.
Great. So the next matter that's on the agenda is project number 2, the paint factory engineering and permit study for Ocean Alliance for $151,500. And I'd like to open the public hearing and ask to speak in favor. So Pam, if you can begin, and then we'll see who else wants to speak, that would be great.
I hope that this PowerPoint isn't causing confusion, but here it is. So the Ocean Alliance project is for engineering and construction drawings for the restoration of the manufactory building at the campus. The total cost is $263,500, and the amount requested and recommended by the committee is $151,500,000. The main thing I want to emphasize with this project is that these engineering plans and construction drawings will really open the door for the paint factory to apply for future funding opportunities. It's just, they had to do all of these things in order to be qualified for certain things in the future. It's eligible as a historic preservation project. And I'll turn it over to Ocean Alliance if someone is on the call to answer any specific questions.
Great. And I've just promoted Alicia to the call to speak in favor. So would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, it's Alicia Pensarosa. I'm Assistant Director at Ocean Alliance. Thank you everyone for at the CPC for recommending this project. I'd just like to add that it's also for the environmental permitting that needs to be done. Since we are on the waterfront, we have a Chapter 91 license, we're in a floodplain zone, there's a lot of hurdles that we need to get over before we can make some real progress. And so these permitting and environmental permitting plans will help us to go to the next phase of restoration for the site.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak in favor? Betsy?
Actually, I'm with Schooner Adventure, and so
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not on this project, but you asked me to unmute myself,
Thank
so.
you for, identifying yourself. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Anyone like to speak in opposition? Madam Clerk, are there any correspondence?
There are no communications.
Thank you. Seeing none. Counselors, any questions? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for a committee report from Councilor Memhard.
Before I do so, I'd like to remind the public as well that there are lengthy interviews and presentations of each of these applications that are available on our Zoom meetings from the CPC and from the CPC committee and from Budget and Finance from last year. Really lengthy, excellent quality presentations over the course of 2 nights, I believe it was. So those are available for review if anybody has any questions or particular interests, and all the city councilors have been given an opportunity to update themselves on each project accordingly. And as to this motion for the paint factory, Budget and Finance voted on a motion by Councilor Memhard, seconded by Councilor John McCarthy. By roll call vote, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend the City Council appropriate up to $151,500 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to Ocean Alliance for the purpose of supporting the development of engineering plans and construction drawings for the restoration of the manufacturing building in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from the unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4748, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Memhard moved it and Councilor Gross seconded it. Is there a discussion, councilors? Okay, let's do a roll call vote. Councilor Grow.
Yes.
Councilor Filter.
Yes.
Councilor Memhard.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman. Yes. Councilor Gross.
Yes.
The yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you. Next project is project number 3, Schooner Adventure, rudder inspection and preservation for the Schooner Adventure in the amount of $10,000. I'd like to open the public hearing and I'd like to ask Pamela to start by speaking in favor.
Of course. So the Schooner Adventure project is for the rudder inspection and preservation. They will utilize the funds to remove, inspect, service, and reinstall the vessel's rudder and related hardware. It's recommended best practices that they do this in 10-year intervals. And the last time they did it was in 2010. So it's timely. The total cost of the project is $25,000, and the total amount that they have requested and that CPA recommends is $10,000. It's eligible as a historic preservation project. So I'll turn it over to Betsy from Schooner Adventure if she has more to add.
Great, thank you. So in continuation of the public hearing, Betsy, would you like to speak in favor?
Sure, I'll just say thank you to the committee for considering this application. It actually was submitted by our previous executive director, Stefan Edick. I am the development director over at Schooner Adventure, and yeah, we're thrilled that this went through, and we're really excited about this preservation project. We've completed our restoration phase of our vessel, and we are moving into a planned preservation schedule for what we consider our chief asset and the flagship of Gloucester. So, you know, it's great because with the changes to the rudder, we'll be able to improve our maneuverability within the harbor, and we'll be able to focus better on education programs that we want to plan for the future. So yes, thank you, everybody.
Great, thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Seeing none, anyone like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
There are no communications.
Councilors, do you have any questions? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask Council Memard to do the committee report.
On a recommendation on a motion by myself, seconded by Councillor John McCarthy, Budget and Finance Committee voted by roll call, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council approve up to $10,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for the purpose of providing funding to the Schooner Adventure for the purpose of repairing and restoring Schooner Adventure's rudder in order to pass inspection by the U.S. Coast Guard and in order to preserve an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded by the unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4749, and I so move.
Second.
Second.
And this is a
There's
big,
a
this
motion
is a
by
big,
Council-
this is
Go
a
ahead.
big rudder.
Okay. Council Memard made the motion, and I think Councilor O'Neill, was it you that made the second? Okay, so
Second.
we have a second. Is there a discussion? So let's do a roll call vote. Councilor Grow,
Yes.
Councilor Majota,
Yes.
Councilor Memard,
Yes, indeed.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilor Worthley,
Yes.
Councilor Gilman, yes. Councilor Gross,
Yes.
the yeses have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you so much. Next project is project number 4, the Annisquam Village Church exterior restoration for the Annisquam Village Church in the amount of $15,000. I'd like to open the public hearing and ask for Pamela to speak in favor.
Of course. So this is for exterior restoration. They will be replacing and repairing shutters, downspouts, repair of clapboards, and upgrading the exterior doors to be ADA compliant. The total amount of the project is $48,199, and the amount requested and recommended by the CPA is $15,000. It's eligible as a historic preservation project, but I'll turn it over to someone from the Annisquam Village Church if they are on the call.
Thank you. I don't see, hold on. I don't see anyone.
Is Peter Lawrence associated with the Annisquam Church?
Yes.
I don't, is he
I
raised
see him.
his hand?
Okay. All right. He's on now.
Oh,
Peter
great.
Lawrence. Peter
Great,
Lawrence should
thank
be-
you, Peter. If you'd introduce yourself and your address and tell us why you're speaking in favor of this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Lawrence, and I first want to thank Pam and the CPA for this generous grant. This is for, I am responsible for construction management for the church. The total project has basically been going in planning since 2016. As many of you know, extensive interior renovation, restoration, adding of a lift. And this is sort of hopefully a final phase of exterior restoration. And one of the things that there's clapboard, but there's also painting. The number might have seemed high for the things, but also painting the exteriors involved. But it is very necessary. Our objective is to have the exterior reflect what's happened in the interior and the work that's going on there. And it is sort of a keystone property, as many of you know, at the entrance to Annisquam. So we are very grateful for this grant, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you,
Thank
Peter.
you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor? Anyone on the call like to speak in opposition? Is there communications, Madam Clerk?
There are no communications.
Thank you. Are there any questions, counselors? Council Grow, do you have your hand up? I
No, no,
can't.
I'm twiddling my fingers. No.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I'd like to close the public hearing and ask Council Memard to do the committee report.
Very good, thank you. The Annisquam Village Church, $15,000 on a motion by Councilor Memhard, seconded by Councilor McCarthy. Budget and Finance Committee voted by roll call, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $15,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding for the Annisquam Village Church for the purpose of supporting the restoration of the Annisquam Village Church exterior in order to preserve an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from the unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. Project will be tracked by the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4750, and I so move.
Second.
Second.
Council Memard has moved it and Council Gross has seconded it. Is there a discussion, councilors? Council Memard.
I'd simply like to comment that this building is an important local resource for a large swath of the community over there. The committee voted to approve assistance several years ago. I think it was one of my first site visits with Councilor Hecht at the time for the community space down below and renovations and making that more, again, publicly accessible. So it's nice to see this project moving forward and coming to fruition, but it is an important community resource, and I'm pleased that we're again helping to support it.
Great, thank you. And Councilor Gross.
Yeah, I just like to also talk about it as a community resource where when we did our private road, they allowed us to have our meetings in their basement, and that was huge that we could all congregate indoors in the early spring to have our discussions, our preliminary meetings, and then some of our votes until the final vote was in the summertime, so we could do that outdoors. But without this facility, it really would have hampered our thing. So that was a really wonderful community outreach that helped us immensely, and it's a major landmark in our city, not just our community. And I applaud the work they've been doing. I watch it every day. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing that I'm a neighbor, I would just like to add that I've seen the growth of this church over the years. The first year that I was on the committee, I think it was Peter that came forward to me and asked for a handicap temporary sign on church days. And we were able to work that through the traffic commission to make sure that people could park safely. And now to see the ramp and it all coming together with partnership of CPA is really neat. So I will be supporting this, and I get to see the progress every day when I leave my home. So thank you. Anyone else like to discuss this? Okay, let's do a roll call. Councilor Grow.
Yes.
Councilor Marjota.
Yes.
Councilor Memard.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman. Yes. Councilor Gross.
Yes.
The yeses have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, Peter. Next project is project number 5, restoration of 12th and 13th century Romanesque and Gothic archways for the Hammond Museum, Inc. in the amount of $110,000. And I'd like to open the public hearing and ask for Pamela to start off in speaking in favor.
So this is work to stabilize and repair archways in 3 locations across the property that have deteriorated due to weatherization. The process will include detailed inventory of all stones and pieces to make sure there's proper replacement, dismantling of the structure to repair the marble. It's a lengthy process. So it'll end up with some cleaning of the stone and restoration cleaning. All repointing would be prepared with color matching. The total estimated cost of the project is $220,000. The amount requested and recommended by the CPA is $110,000. It's eligible as a historic preservation project. Linda is on from Hammond's Castle, so I'll let her answer any questions or speak a little bit more.
Okay, great, thank you. Linda, would you introduce yourself and your address and speak in favor of this this project?
Absolutely. I'm Linda Harvey. I'm the Executive Director of the Hammond Castle Museum, 80 Hesperus Avenue in Gloucester. And I first would really like to thank the Community Preservation Committee for recommending this project to the council. It is something that is extremely important to our property, and the stabilization of these pieces is something that it will actually enhance the property, as well as create a safe environment for visitors that come to the castle on annual visits. We tracked over 40,000 people, visitors, which this past summer was one of our record number years. And we are opening so many wonderful opportunities for the community to come to the museum and to participate in programming, historical, educational programs, and many other things. So I'm very happy to answer any questions that the council members may have. This is an extremely important renovation for us so that we can preserve these columns. They've been struggling with 90 years of weather here on the water, and they just need a little facelift. So can I answer any questions?
Thank you, Linda. In just a moment, but thank you. Is there anyone on the call that would like to speak in favor? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
There are no communications.
Any counselors wish to ask Linda Harvey any questions? Linda, I would like to ask you just a very short question. In terms of community outreach, can you just name one or two programs that you've done to get the community to benefit in this beautiful museum?
Absolutely. We've been really trying hard to be able to reach out to the community as often as possible. And some of the programs that we've had are free kid days during the April school vacations. We're going to be doing that again this year. We've had open houses. We were part of the illumination for Gloucester and Brockport this past season. And we had an open house opening the museum to the entire community to come in and see our holiday decorations as well as view the illuminations. We've also been hosting underserved children at Christmas with a visitation from Santa with gifts for over 100 children in the community free this year. As well as what we're starting to do, we're going to be opening with a ribbon cutting of our season in May, which our full season will open in May, but on April 30th, we will also have another open house opening the castle for the season for the 22 season, which will be our 47th season actually to be open to the public. And one of the most wonderful pieces of this that I've been working very hard towards is to have an opportunity to open the museum to the Gloucester community on a regular basis. We have established that this year we will be having free admission day every Tuesday to all Gloucester residents with proof of residency. So we'd love to be able to show more people the castle and to encourage them to come and visit us. We also, on many, many occasions, have donated to all the nonprofit organizations in Gloucester that have asked us for donations for their auctions or their fundraising events. And we've actually serviced over 7 different organizations with the use of the museum for events and parties, something which is a value of somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000. As well as family memberships. And we're also working with the Cape Ann Animal Shelter. We're going to be sponsoring a dinner here for 20 people as part of their upcoming fundraising event. But we're going to have an adoption day here at the castle. So they're going to be bringing their pets, their cats and dogs here. And we hope to have a very successful adoption day for the animal shelter.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you. Councilor Grow, you have a question?
Just because I don't know, are the grounds open for free, or do you have to pay to visit the grounds themselves and not go inside the castle?
No, the grounds are always open for free. And it is a limited section of the grounds that are open. It's only the front street side of the castle that's open. The ocean lawn is closed and preserved for people who come into the museum for a tour or to see something, have an event here. Then the ocean lawn is open to the public at that point.
Great, thank you. Any questions from other councilors? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for the committee report. Councilor Memard.
Not many places that can talk about restoring their 12th and 13th century Romanesque archways. So this is great. On a motion by Councilor Memhard, seconded by Councilor McCarthy, the Budget and Finance Committee voted by roll call, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $110,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to Hammond Museum, Inc. for the purpose of stabilization and repair of exterior architectural archways in order to preserve an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from the unrestricted reserves of Fund 4500. The project will be tracked by the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4751, and I so move.
Second.
Council Memard made the motion. It was seconded by Councilor Gross. Is there discussion? Councilor Nolan.
Linda, I just want to thank you and the castle for everything you've done in the community. It's been wonderful to watch it progress back to the point where it was when I was a child. Born and raised down the street, got to see many events there and taken place and visited many times. The grounds have come a long way. The gardens are fantastic. Anybody on social media that gets to watch prom pictures or high school events where they've had pictures taken, it's breathtaking. The new glass roof is unbelievable, the way that came out.
It is.
And I couldn't be happier with the way the CPC has worked with you and the importance of this museum for our city. And I'll definitely be supporting this tonight.
Great, thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilor Gross.
Yeah, Madam President, I'm very happy that you asked that question because that was an impressive amount of community service that you're providing. That was very good to hear, Linda. And if we call the castle, can we talk to you to get those dates and things so we could get the word out?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call vote. Councilor Grow.
Yes.
Councilor Majota.
Yes.
Councilor Memhard.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan.
Absolutely, yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman. Yes. Councilor Gross.
Yes.
The yeses have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you so much, Linda. Next project is project number 6. Preserve, promote, and celebrate the stories of Gloucester's legacy. Gloucester's 400. In the amount of $49,905. And I'd like to open the public hearing and ask for Pamela to begin and speaking in support.
Of course. So this project is to restore and preserve several historically significant documents and photographs. This will include several books, and on top of that, they'll also be doing a digitization piece, which will not be covered by CPA funds, but it's a large project where they will be restoring and preserving several important historical documents. The total cost of the project is $95,555. The total amount requested from the CPA and recommended by the committee is $49,905. It's eligible as a historic preservation project. And I believe that Ruth Pino is on to speak a little bit more about the project.
Wonderful. Ruth, would you introduce yourself and tell us about why you're speaking in favor of this?
Sorry, I thought wasn't muted, but I was. So I'm Ruth Pino. I live at 82 Wheeler Street in Gloucester. I'm one of 3 tri-chairs on the Gloucester 400. Gloucester 400 is leaving behind a legacy of stories for the future to remember Gloucester. This project meets our goals, and we're really grateful for this grant to help us with these precious documents.
Great, thank you so much. Would anyone else like to speak in favor? Would anyone like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, any communications?
There are no communications.
Counselors, are there any questions? Seeing none, is the committee report from Councilor Memard?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. On a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor McCarthy, Budget and Finance Committee voted by roll call, 2 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 had technical difficulties that evening. Afraid, Val, that was you. To recommend that the City Council appropriate $49,905 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding for the Gloucester 400 for the purpose of supporting the restoration and preservation of historically significant documents and photographs in order to preserve an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4752, and I so move.
Second.
Councilor Memard made the motion, and I think it was Councilor Gross, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Seconded, thank you. Is there a discussion, councilors? Councilor Grow?
I would just say I have a particular fondness for the preservation of photographs. They are such an important component of a community's history. Not only the documents you have in your possession as part of this project, but all the family photographs and all the photographs that go back in history that era can never be replaced. And anything we can do to preserve that legacy and that history for the next 400 years moving on, I think is something that we really should support. And I don't know if, I mean, obviously this is a very specific project, but this is a good time for people to sort of think about what they have in their attics and in their homes and in their albums, and do something to personally preserve those, because they will not last forever if you're not careful. And once lost, they are never recovered. So I'm going to support this with great enthusiasm.
Great, thank you. Anyone else in discussion, councilors? So I would just like to mention that, Ruth, I thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the 400th. And this is just one component of it, but your volunteerism for the city is second to none, and it's very appreciated. So thank you. So let's do a roll call vote. Councilor Grow.
Yes.
Councilor Majota.
Yes.
Councilor Memard.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman. Yes. Councilor Gross.
Yes, and thank you, Ruth, for your seemingly limitless amount of contribution you give to this city.
Echoed. All in, so the yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you. Project number 7 First Parish Burial Ground Gravestone Restoration, the City of Gloucester Cemeteries Advisory Committee in the amount of $9,800. And I'd like to open the public hearing and ask Pamela to begin and telling us why you're supporting this.
Of course. So this project is for the restoration and preservation of several gravestones located at the First Parish Burial Ground. It is, I believe it's nine headstones and 6 installations. They're working in partnership with DPW. The total project cost is $9,800, and that is the amount that they have requested and the committee has recommended. It's eligible as a historic preservation project. And I'll turn it over. I don't know if someone from the advisory committee is on, but I will turn it over to them for a little bit more detail.
And I see Sandy Berry is here to speak in favor. So Sandy, welcome. So glad you're here. If you just introduce yourself and your address and tell us why you're supporting this restoration project.
Great. Thank you, Madam President and Council. My name is Sandy Berry. I'm the co-chair of the Cemeteries Advisory Committee. There are 4 of us on the committee. And as Pam said, we work very closely with DPW because they are a great asset to us. Let's see, and I also would thank, on behalf of the Cemeteries Advisory Committee, Pam Toby and the Community Preservation Committee. These headstones are covered, which are covered in this grant, will date back to 1717. And I would like to thank all of you really for your consideration, and welcome to the 5 new counselors.
Thank you so much, Sandy, and thank you for all your volunteerism. Much appreciated. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Would anyone like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, are there any communications to report?
There are no communications.
Councilors, do you have any questions? Councilor Gross. Tony, would you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Sandy, I'd really like to thank you and your committee for this work that goes on behind the scenes that is really so important for our heritage and going on forward. I think you need to go bigger though next time. It's try to expand, work with the new administration. I think our new CAO will be happy to help you along with this, I would hope. And all I can say is I think you need to expand on this. You've got there's a lot of old cemeteries in this city. I used to do rubbings here on the one in Bayview with Al Duca. I don't know if you remember Al, but that was back in the 70s. Wow. That was a very important graveyard there that he put a lot of energy in, and the community also did. But there's a lot of those that are little cemeteries that are buried here and there that you guys have been taking care of very quietly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. Any other questions, councilors?
I would just say that the Budget and Finance Committee last term made the same recommendation as Councilor Gross has just done. And I know that the Burial Committee is limited by human resources and needs to schedule how to use their funds. But we hope that they have all the encouragement they need for a long-term plan and financial support to preserve this legacy.
And Sandy, I'd ask you to take a message back to your great team and tell them how much we appreciate all their hard work. So thank you. Right now there's no further questions. I'll close the public hearing and I'll ask Councilor Memard to do the committee report.
Yes, thank you. On a motion by Councilor Memhard, seconded by Councilor McCarthy, Budget and Finance Committee voted by roll call, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $9,800 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the City of Gloucester, DPW, and Cemetery Advisory Committee for the purpose of restoring gravestones located at the First Parish Burial Ground in order to preserve an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Capital Projects Fund 5811, and I so move.
Second.
Councilor Memard has made the motion, and it was seconded by Councilor Majota. Is there discussion? Councilor Nolan.
I just want to echo the other comments from the other counselors. Sandy, you've done an excellent job. This committee's come a long way, and I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done to make a difference in the people that can't speak and their families that may not be around to represent them. And thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilor Grow?
Yes.
Councilor Majota?
Yes.
Councilor Memard?
Yes.
Councilor Nolan?
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilor Worthley?
Yes.
Councilor Gilman, yes. Councilor Gross?
Yes.
The yeses have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you so much, Sandy. Next project, project number 8, the restoration of the Meeting House Green, the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation, in the amount of $130,000. I'd like to open the public hearing and ask Pamela Toby to tell us why she's supporting this on behalf of the CPC.
So this project is to restore the Meeting House Green to its original concept, and then also make the to address some ADA accessibility issues. They'll be reconstructing the stairs and platform as well as part of this project. The total project cost will be $339,700, and the total amount requested from the CPA and recommended by the committee is $130,000. It's eligible as a historic preservation project, and I believe someone from the Meeting House should be on, and I will let them talk a little bit more about it.
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to speak in favor?
I think Charles is here.
Mr. Nazarian, would you introduce yourself and your address and speak on behalf of this project?
Certainly. I'm Charles Nazarian. I'm the president of the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation. I live at 956 Washington Street, but sometimes I think I live at 50 Middle Street instead, which is the address of the green of Gloucester's historic meeting house, which was built in 1806 and is the last surviving building of its type in the area, and it's on the National Historic Register. The restoration of the green is particularly connected to the thousands of people who come every year to our summer benefit series. This past summer, over $15,000 was raised for various nonprofits in the area, like Pathways for Children, Maritime Gloucester, and altogether 9 of them. The condition of the green is a particularly safety issue at this point. The tree limbs falling and all kinds of issues, as well as access. So we're very grateful to the help that the CPC has given to the restoration of the meeting house. As many of you may know, we're just finishing the work on the tower, and that was $120,000 that came from the CPA that helped us get there. And previous to that, a similar amount was allocated for the sprinkler system that was completed about 3.5 years ago. And so it's made an enormous difference to the preservation of the meeting house and to its programming. So we're extremely grateful for the community support.
Great, thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
There are no communications.
Councilors, are there any questions? So I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for the committee report. Councilor Memard. Can you unmute yourself, Counselor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Restoration of the Meeting House Green, Gloucester Meeting House Foundation, $130,000. On a motion by Councillor Memhard, seconded by Councillor McCarthy, Budget and Finance Committee voted by roll call, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $130,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation for the purpose of restoring the Meeting House Green in order to preserve an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Projects, Fund 4753, and I so move.
Second.
Councillor Memhard made the motion, and can you tell me who seconded it? Councillor Grow, thank you.
Councilor Grow.
Is there a discussion, councillors? Councillor Nolan.
Hi, Charles. Thank you for coming here tonight. The Meeting House has come a long way, and it's definitely become a large part of our community with all the access to people and the programs they support. And also, I might add, as a car guy, that they're one of the only community centers that actually have a car show, which is wonderful. And I know that you're a Lincoln fan, but I believe this building deserves the Cadillac approach. And thank you for everything you do, Charles. And I will be supporting this.
Thank you for your support.
Any other councillors want to participate in the discussion? Seeing none, let's do the roll call vote. Councillor Grow.
Yes.
Councillor Majota.
Yes.
Councillor Memhard.
Yes.
Councillor Nolan.
Yes.
Councillor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councillor O'Neill.
Yes.
Councillor Worthley.
Yes.
Councillor Gilman. Yes. Councillor Gross.
Yes.
The yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. So that concludes the round number 12 for the CP.
Oh, yeah, we have one more, sorry.
What? Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't be.
Excuse me. So project number 9. Thank you, Councilor.
This is the best one.
Ravenswood Park parking improvements. The trustees of the reservations in the amount of $37,700. I would like to open the public hearing and ask for Pamela to tell us why the CPC is recommending project number 9.
Of course. So this is the Ravenswood parking improvements project. So it's to expand the available parking to accommodate 23 parking spaces and include 2 ADA parking spaces, as well as install some new signage. The total project cost is $59,900, and the total amount requested from the CPA and recommended by the committee is $37,700. It's eligible as an open space and recreation project. Jared is on from the trustees, so I will let him talk a little bit more.
Great, thank you, Pamela. Jared, would you introduce yourself and your address and tell us why you're supporting this?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jared Bowers, and I am the property director for Ravenswood Park with the trustees of reservations. Very excited to be here, and we're really grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all, and also thank you to the committee for the recommendation. As many of you will know, Ravenswood's a very popular park in the local area. We estimate we have around 60,000 visitors annually. And at present, we only have around 10 parking spaces, which often ends up with cars parking out on Route 27. There's a big overspill there, which obviously is not the safest ideal either. So we're very much hoping to be able to expand this parking lot to provide a safer access point for the local community and visitors.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak in favor? Seeing none, would anyone like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
There are no communications.
Councilors, do you have any questions to ask of Jared? Council Gross.
Yeah, Jared, thank you for that lovely resource that we have in this city. It's really an incredible place to be. But what is the, how many spaces are we increasing? Or are we just creating some ADA spaces?
No, we're doubling the amount that is currently there. So currently we have about 10 and we're moving up to hopefully 23 spaces, with 2 of those being ADA.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Tony has a dog, so I know that that's an important benefit, right?
2 dogs.
2 dogs.
I hear you, Tony. I take my dog there all the time as well.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Council Memard?
I'd just like to echo what Jared presented, that this is really a real benefit to a huge constituency in Gloucester that enjoy Ravenswood Park and the legacy that Samuel Sawyer provided in that wonderful parkland and resource of mature hemlocks and trees. And parking has always been a challenging issue there, and parking on the road, as was presented to us at Budget and Finance, can sometimes be problematic or actually quite hazardous, and has resulted in accidents of people trying their best to park off the side of the road and get out and walk into the park entrance when there's not enough space in the parking lots. And based on their studies as they presented to us, they think that this, by doubling the lot size, will be very appropriate in terms of accommodating an appropriate audience of people that are enjoying the park.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, councilors? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask Council Memard to provide us with his committee report.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. On a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor McCarthy, Budget and Finance voted by roll call, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $37,700 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the trustees of reservations for the purpose of improving parking and access at Ravenswood Park in Gloucester, Massachusetts. The appropriation will be allocated to the open space and recreational category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Open Space Projects Fund 4607, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Council Memard, seconded by Council Worthley. Is there discussion, councilors? Council Nolan.
Hi, Jared. Thank you for all you do there. It's a treasure in the heart of my ward, in the heart of a lot of the city. It's a wonderful place that you can walk freely, enjoy everything the environment in Gloucester has to offer with your family and pets. Parking is a premium at Ravenswood. 10 spaces, 13 spaces, 40 spaces, they'd still be full every day. It's that enjoyable. I do recognize the dangers of parking on a state highway plus the legalities of it. I'd like to work on some more options on some public property in the area. Maybe yourself and the administration, we can get together and talk about maybe utilizing some winter parking at Magnolia Woods to offset and access the trails from across the street. But other than that, great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion? So I'd just like to share just a real strong voice of approval on this. I actually, when I was walking my second Golden about 6 or 7 years ago, I was one of the folks that couldn't park there because there wasn't enough room. So I parked on the side of 127, and after about a 3-mile walk with our beautiful dog, I jumped off a rock, getting ready to jump in my car on the highway, and I severely broke my ankle. And it was just one of those events that I'll never forget. And knowing that you're making this parking lot quite a bit larger and providing 2 handicap spots is really such a great benefit to our community. So I will be supporting this. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So we're ready for a roll call. Councilor Grow,
Yes.
Councilor Majota,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilor Worthley,
Yes.
Councilor Gilman, yes. Councilor Gross,
Yes.
the yeses have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. So
Thank you
this
all.
concludes this 12th round. And thank you so much, Pamela, and for your entire team for a job well done. And it's a lot of work. And we really, truly appreciate it. Your volunteerism just means so much to us as well as your entire CPC. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you for all of your support. Quick plug is that the next eligibility forms for our next cycle are due on March 8th. So we'll get you all that information if you're interested in sharing it.
Great. We'd love to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next order of business.
Next order of business for council vote, the City Council Civility Resolution.
Great, thank you. Could you pull that down on our screen? Go ahead. You are muted.
Okay, so you didn't ask me to share it, so I didn't.
Okay.
I don't have it on the screen.
Okay, so counselors, has anyone not read it thoroughly? Okay, so I would like to make a motion to adopt the City Council Civility Resolution.
Second.
Point of order. Well,
Go ahead.
no,
Go ahead. Do you want to
it's not a
move
point
it?
of order. I interrupted too quickly. I apologize.
Okay, so I moved it, and the second was it Tony?
Scott.
Oh, Scott. Okay, second was by Council Memhard. Is there a discussion? Council Grow.
Yeah, I want to take us all the way back to yesterday when we were talking about this briefly during the governance meeting. I understand fully why the reasoning behind the original document, but it was brought up in the meeting yesterday. It's kind of a toothless thing that doesn't really have, I think, the strength of message that it could. And I'm wondering if we wouldn't be better served sending it back to the Human Rights Commission and back to ONA for a review and an analysis of whether or not we can make that something that has just a little bit more punch to it. I think it doesn't say, I think, what it is that we hope it says. And I would feel a lot better if the council was taking a little bit stronger stance on the issue of intolerance and potential hate crimes and the treatment of marginalized communities in Gloucester. And I think that as a document could be bolstered significantly. That's just my opinion. I think it's as it is right now, it's nothing more than a gesture.
Council Memhard.
I'd just like to second Councilor Grove's sentiments on that. And I think it's important to note that this code of conduct is a work in progress, and that it's something that really deserves to be reviewed and really owned by each incoming new council. And I think that just to sign it and accept it as written, especially if people perceive that there are some weaknesses, especially given the challenges of today's times, it's really a perfect opportunity to dig back into it and massage it a little bit, maybe improve it, but come up with a document that we feel is ours and we can own.
So Councilor, you mentioned the code of conduct. You meant the civility.
Yes. Yeah, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because they're two different things. Great.
Well, they both deserve, I know the Human Rights Commission has worked hard, and the council has too. But again, they're like anything, they're a living, breathing, working document, and they deserve our consideration.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Nolan.
I'd like to make a motion that we send this back to the Human Rights Committee and to Ordinance Administration and then to the full council so we can put our spin on it with the new counselors and an update of some of the things that have happened in that community over the last even 6 months.
Okay, so we have a
Second.
motion. Is there a second?
Point of order.
Second.
Oh, go
Order.
ahead. What?
Madam President, I believe we have to dispose of the first motion first before we take a second motion. So we should vote on acceptance of the civility resolution. And then if assuming a negative result, we would then revert to Councilor Nolan's recommendation that we refer it back to ONA and the Human Rights Commission.
Can we withdraw the motion? Can we withdraw the motion if the motion initiator and second agree? The initial motion?
I didn't know that there was a motion on the table to begin with. We had a civility resolution.
It was a motion to
That was the
adopt.
motion. Yeah, motion to
It
adopt.
was a motion to adopt, so it wasn't a motion. It was a motion to adopt.
I mean, the simplest thing would be just to vote no and then go with the motion to refer it back to the ONA. And I don't think it's sending the message that we're not supportive of the concept. It's just a procedure to get rid of the motion that we have on the table.
I'd like to ask our city clerk, are you comfortable with that, Joanne, or would you?
I believe Councilor Grow suggestion would be the best because you had a motion to adopt.
Okay.
That was the first motion, so you would need to act on the first motion, and then after the second one would be the motion to refer it back to ONA and the Human Rights Commission.
Okay, so let's be clear. We're going to go back to the initial motion, which was to adopt. In that I made the motion and it was seconded by Scott, Council Memhard. Okay, so let's do a roll call vote on that motion. Is everyone clear on what this motion is right now?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Council Worthley.
Is there any reason why we couldn't vote in favor of it and then send the second motion to send it back to the Civil Rights Commission? We could dispose of it by voting yes.
Well, no, then you've adopted it.
Right.
I mean, you could, and then you theoretically could send them. I think that's more confusing.
I want the message to be that for some period of time, we don't support being civil. I know that's not your intent, but I just would be unintended consequences.
I just think you need to, if we're going to run by Robert's rules, we should run by Robert's rules and do that which is appropriate for each motion and get it out of the way. I mean, you're perfectly free to vote in favor of it as it is, and that's fine too. I don't think they're sending the message. I think what we're sending the message is that we want something a little stronger and a little bit more rigorous, and that's my position on that. So I probably wouldn't have voted to adopt it as it is because I don't think it's strong enough.
Okay, thank you. So, councilors, this is to adopt the City Council Civility Resolution. Councilor Grow.
No.
We're still in discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see any other further hands.
No,
I
was just.
Councilor Gross.
I was just wondering if people wanted to have an opportunity to express, their sentiment about that. This is, good and very good document as far as its intent goes, but it doesn't go. I agree with Jason. It doesn't go far enough. So if people wanted to have an opportunity to speak to that, so that it wasn't misunderstood that we were voting against it.
Great, thank you. So, so new councilors, this is also what the minutes will say in terms of our intent. So, is there anyone else that would like to discuss this?
So, Madam
President.
President,
Councilor
so we're just looking. I know vote. We're looking to reword the resolution.
Exactly.
And then a yes vote is keep it as is.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else like to discuss this? Okay, so let's start the roll call vote again. Grow,
No.
Counselor Majota,
No.
Counselor Memard,
No.
Counselor Nolan,
No.
Counselor O'Hara,
No.
Counselor O'Neill,
No.
Counselor Worthley,
Present.
Counselor Gilman. No. Counselor Gross.
No.
8 in opposition, 1 present. And now we're going to go back to the
Counselor
amended
Nolan.
motion, right? The second.
It's the new motion.
Right. And that was to refer, it was a motion made by Counselor Nolan, and it was seconded by, help me,
Second.
Counselor Grow. And that was to refer it back to the Human Rights Commission and ONA, and ultimately the City Council
For review.
for review. Okay, so is everyone clear on this second motion? Okay, so let's do a, so we know what the motion is, a discussion. Is there discussion on this motion? Counselor Nolan.
I just feel though we needed to put some more areas into it that aren't really explained. And that's why I thought bringing this back to have some fresh eyes on it with new counselors. It is a city council resolution, not a city resolution. And I think it's best represented by the current and stand-in council to make sure it reflects all of their needs and what they feel is best for their constituents.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else in discussion? Counselor Grow.
I just want to point out that I'm not just foisting the work off on somebody else in another subcommittee. As the liaison with the Human Rights Commission, or I intend to be fully active in the drafting of this and the review of it. So, you know, I'm committed to making sure that this is the best thing that we can bring forward.
Great, and I will be supporting this referral. I was part of the team that brought this in, but at that point, the Human Rights Commission was just about being established, if not even in existence. And I think since that point, they've really evolved, and I'm comfortable with Jason Grow being on that team as an appointed member. And it seems to me like our message is very strong in support of this initiative. We just want to put some more teeth in it. So I will be supporting this. Would anyone else like to speak in discussion? Council Worthley.
I just want to thank Councilor Grove for taking the time to make the motion, and I fully support the intention.
Great. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call. Councilor Grow.
Yes.
Counselor Majota.
Yes.
Counselor Memhard.
Yes, and thank you, Jason.
Counselor Nolan.
Yes.
Counselor O'Hara.
Yes.
Counselor O'Neill.
Yes.
Counselor Worthley.
Yes.
Counselor Gilman. Yes. Counselor Gross.
Yes.
The yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is the City Council Code of Conduct.
I move to adopt the City Council Code of Conduct.
Second.
So Gilman has moved it and Gross has seconded it. Is there a discussion? Was that you, Council? Okay. You wait, you waited again.
I know, I did. No, I actually did. I just think I mean, I'm grateful that, no, well, I'm not grateful. I understand why it's important now to come up with these codes of conduct. I'm a little disappointed that we've had to come to this point, that, you know, as the fact that we're all grown adults, you know, in a in a civil society that we have to come to the point where we have to dedicate ourselves to not being jerks to each other. I will support this. I feel a little sad that we've come to this point that we need this, to be honest with you. I mean, it does give some ground rules and on how to deal with issues when they do arise, and that's a good thing. I just hope we never have to engage in them.
Thank you. Any other comments? Discussion? Councilor Gross.
I did miss the first part of that, and I think internet connection was a problem, but I didn't know if it was mentioned that this is an annual examination that this gets. So this sunsets, it's only for 1 year.
Exactly. We take it up every January. After, right. It should be every year, Joanne, or is it every term?
Every term. So it's 2 years.
Okay. So
can I suggest in light of Scott's comments earlier on the civility resolution that as we approach the end of our term, that we refer this document back to O&A for an analysis of whether it still works for us, as he said, it's a living document, and set it up again for the next council.
So I would, so let me speak to it and then we can go back to your comment. So I am supporting this. This was part of a kind of a best practice of MMA back in January of 2020. Councilor McCarthy and I both attended a workshop, and code of conducts for municipal elected officials was the theme of this workshop, and it was overcrowded, and the concept of treating each other with dignity and respect, and a conversation at the same time about elected officials and ways that you can rein elected officials in using parliamentary procedure and good governance was the major thrust of this conversation. And in this past year, there were several webinars that occurred, and one of the webinars actually had 400 city councilors and selectmen and select women on it. And so I definitely think that this is a good document. There is some teeth in terms of things that we can do to hold each other accountable. But I would certainly encourage us to review this again at for the upcoming council in 2 years, because I think in the spirit of continuous improvement, we might be able to garner some suggestions of what we liked and what we didn't like, and there might be new things we could add. So I like the theme of that, and actually by having this come up in 2 years in January, we'll have the perfect opportunity to do that depending on who decides to run again. So I agree with that in concept. And I hope councilors today vote to support this. Any other discussion, councilors? Okay, let's do a roll call vote. Councilor Grow.
Yes.
Councilor Michelle.
Yes.
Whose dog is that?
Whose dog's voting? Point of order.
Your dog needs a biscuit, Scott.
Call on me, Val, so I can vote.
Councilor Memard.
Roof, yes.
Councilor Nolan.
Yes, and actually I believe that the dog is voting for Ravenswood.
So that means Tony's going to vote that way too for his dogs. Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman. Yes. Councilor Gross.
Yes.
The yeses have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. I would like to add that for those of you who just signed up for this, please get into the city clerk's office and sign it. So then she can post it on our website and we will have that accomplished. So thank you so much, councilors. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Is councilors' request to the mayor.
So our new process is that we go in roll call order. And so I would like to start with Councilor Grow.
Thank you. I believe I sent an email to this effect, but I'm gonna on my knees, Ms. Cahill, I'm gonna beg you to allow some minor repairs along Beach and Brightside Avenues, notwithstanding the private road designation. There is some latitude for emergency repairs and repairs of a minor nature. Those are major thoroughfares in and out of East Gloucester. I don't know how close I've come to blowing tires and axles on Brightside. I'm just a wee little bit of asphalt is all I'm asking for. So if you could find your way to do that, we would be grateful in East Gloucester. I just want to send a general thanks and comment out as self-interest. I suppose my wife works for the Open Door. I think people need to understand how well and how effortlessly it seemed, but not without great effort underneath. The Open Door responded to the pandemic, the subsequent increased need in food. They shifted their complete model of operation on a dime. They have worked with great efficacy in keeping COVID to a minimum in their own ranks. We now have Ken Duckworth cooking dinners for the community meals. What was the other thing I was going to get to that was really important on this topic? I don't remember. Unfortunately, my brain doesn't work that well past 9 o'clock.
The groundbreaking?
Sorry, well, I don't want to get into that because I don't know enough about it. But I will say that I know it was the SNAP benefits. They are a resource for people to sign up for and get SNAP benefits, food stamps. There is an alarming number of people in Gloucester who are eligible for SNAP who either do not know about it or do not know how to get access to it. The Open Door is a resource for this. There are literally thousands of people, mostly I would say seniors in that category and children, who are eligible for assistance, who are not receiving it. And getting SNAP opens up a lot of doors to a lot of other programs. So if you have any idea of people who are in need or are not sure if they're in need, please have them reach out to the Open Door. They are a resource, they are free, they will help you, and it will make Gloucester stronger for it. Thank you.
Thank you, well said. Counselor, I'm wondering if maybe you would want to draft a citation on behalf of our council and bring it forward at a meeting, and we could approve it and then I'll sign it. I think based on the pandemic and everything that the Open Door has done for our community, it really warrants something special from us. So if you might want to think that, I'm sure you would have us unanimously approve that citation. So
I think that'd be very nice.
Great, thank you. So next is Councilor Majota.
Hello. So, question, Mayor. Again, a little bit more potholes, and with the few private roads that I do have in my ward, piggyback on Jason, is that there's a few roads that I drive down, and it's the bumpiness, and just getting through the process and learning how to make sure we can try to fix those. And thanking the people for the Open Door. My wife volunteers and delivers food every day, and she spends 2 hours on the road just driving around and bringing food. So thank everyone at the Open Door. And getting back to all the people that email me as soon as I possibly can.
Great, thank you. And with our CAO, Jill Cahill on the call. Jill, if you're still there, would you, if you can hear us? Awesome, thank you. No, it's a long night. What time did you get to work this morning? At 7, probably? I know. So we explained yesterday at our governance meeting the importance of the presentation from Mike Hale of the current ordinance. similar to what he did back, I believe it was in 2018. And that when we spoke, when Council Nolan and I met with you and Mayor Verga last week, you said maybe in the March timeframe, he could do his presentation to us about the ordinance. Could you just confirm that that sounds like something that would be reasonable? Because it really is an issue that there's just so much interest in learning.
Sure,
about.
absolutely. And I think you all know that Mayor Verga is committed to this issue as well. And what I'm trying to pace out, obviously, is just the kind of intense incoming of information to the new administration. So we need to get updated, a thorough update from Mike first. And I know that the mayor is committed to putting together a task force related to private roads to take a look at the information Mike presents to us and then following to you, and determine where the opportunities are, where our limitations are. And you know, one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to and enjoying working with this mayor is he's willing to understand where the limitations are and willing to push where we have opportunities. So we're with you guys on this. We hear it too. I actually live on a private road. My husband's sitting next to me, listening to this conversation as we speak. So anyway, know that we're all with you and we understand, and we're committed to it. So we're shooting for March, and I don't think it should be a problem. If we can do it sooner, we will. I think that February just goes by like a blink of an eye for all of us. So trying to make sure we can deliver on expectations.
Great, thank you. And one of the things that I would mention to all counselors, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is really roll up your sleeves and read all the documents on the city website under Public Works and the link called Private Road Repair, because there's historical information there that goes back to in the 1940s when our council approved the plowing of private roads. But it really will allow you to understand what the state law is and how we mirror that here in Gloucester with our ordinance. And it will give you lots of good information to know so you can share that to your constituents until you're able to have this more detailed Q&A session with our Public Works Director, Mike Hale, which will be coming up as soon as possible. Jill, do you have something?
And I'll just say, sorry, my son just walked downstairs. I'll just say that if you put it, I'm on it right now, because as I said, my husband texted me asking about one of our neighboring streets. I said, well, I know where to find the answer. If you put private roads into the search bar, for everyone who's listening, if you put private roads into the search bar on the city website, it's the first page that comes up. So just in case there's any question marks, it's very easy to find. And I'm currently looking to determine whether or not Ferry Street is a private road or not. So I'm using it just as you are.
I think it might not be. I think it's a private road, but I'm not the one.
About to find out.
Anyway, thank you. So next is Councilor Majota. Are you finished with your group? Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I just have a few things to send to the Traffic Commission as well.
Okay.
Other than that, nothing else.
Okay, and connect with me on that, because I had a slide that I was going to go over to yesterday that we didn't get to, and it will give you some guidelines in terms of how to do this. And I've talked to Councilor Nolan, who chairs O&A, and so what I'll do is I will make sure that you all see it right now so you can kind of follow the path. But I would say Councilor Nolan would be the best person to kind of plot along how the that referral should be, because it's different than it used to be with us on O&A. The referral needs to go through the mayor's office to then ask the the Traffic Commission to look into matters, with the exception of handicap parking and stop signs. Just make sure that it's coordinated through the city clerk's office and Councilor Nolan, so we get the referral correctly, because it's a new process based on our attorney's interpretation of the ordinance. Okay, so little confusing, but I think the document itself will make you understand how it works. So Joanne, if you could send that out maybe tomorrow, that would be great to the counselors. So next up is Council Memard.
I have three quick things. First, again, I'm working on a wish list of requests of priority items here in Ward 1 to submit to the mayor's office for consideration and review. Two, as you all know, there's an ongoing pollution issue at Good Harbor Beach, the creek. And I'm working with Rachel Raffello at the Board of Health and with the administration. They're in the process of they've gone out to bid and are going to be hiring a consultant to help review try and track down the source of that E. coli contamination and try and get it addressed before the summer season, because it's going to become a serious health issue and nuisance for many people in East Gloucester and who use our beach, Good Harbor Beach. And the third thing is, rather than waiting at this point on Beach Road, I've met with Peter Hood, the manager at the golf club on Beach Road, and I've requested and received from Mike Hale a list of all the abutters on Beach Road so that we can begin a legal process of filing for a betterment petition for Beach Road. I hope that the city changes things before then. We don't have to go that far, but I know that if we can demonstrate public will by the abutters to step up to helping address this, that we can get the city to work with us. I think that's probably our best strategy rather than just leaving it. So we're going to begin a betterment petition process and see how that carries us forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nolan.
First of all, I make my living on potholes. So as far as car repairs, I would like to eradicate them, but I can say that Jason's car is not that bad that he has to worry about all those potholes in the road, but they do have a big issue on Beach Road, and that's a concern. I would like to point out the fact of the traffic commission is something we should be looking into and going a little bit different, and we can all get together on that. And not much more. I thought last night was a great meeting, and it's great working with all you new people, and let's keep it going.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor O'Hara.
Certainly, thank you. I sent a lengthy list of requests to the mayor and Jill this morning, so I will not expand on those. They have the list. We will be having at the Magnolia Library a joint blood drive Thursday. The American Red Cross and Dana-Farber will be at the library collecting both independently, so there'll be about 90 donors. We will also have New England Organ Donor Bank representatives at the Magnolia Library that day. So if anyone would like to consider becoming an organ donor, you can stop by and speak with Chris, who's a registered nurse. She will be there. The hours will be 12 to 7 p.m. And we thank approximately the 90 donors who have signed up to roll up their sleeves and give the gift of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor O'Neill. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, thank you. I would like to put in a request to the mayor to repave the other half of Warner Street and the other half of Millet Street. That's it. Thank you.
And one of the matters which I'm sure that you will learn from Public Works is that during the winter, repaving is sometimes not possible because of the cold. But I'm not the expert. I'm sure Councilor Nolan knows a lot more about that than me and Councilor O'Hara. But I just wanted to plant a seed that in the cold weather, we typically can't do much with potholes and paving.
Right, I just wanted to get on the list.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
So that was the in a request to the mayor. Thank you. Councilor Worthley.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I have a few, not too many, 4 quick ones. There's a recent snowstorm, not really that bad, but the boulevard didn't seem to be plowed or anything. And I've got a request from a constituent to ask the city, what's the plan, if there isn't one, to maintain the boulevard. So I just want to submit that. Second one, Mayor Verga listed at our last meeting the ways that there's an old policy on how free cash was going to be distributed. And I appreciated that there was a policy in place. I didn't see it in the minutes, but I might have missed it. Can I just request that we have a copy of that protocol that they had established? I think it was established by the prior administration, but I'd like to see that. Third, I went to a ribbon cutting ceremony on Friday at Happy Humpback Cafe, 2 Lexington Ave. Just want to encourage all the councilors to make a visit if you haven't already. I think Councilor Nolan has a number of times, but it was delicious, great people, and a great addition to the community. And lastly, I don't know how to do this, but I think that we should maybe consider a commendation for Pamela Toby and the Community Preservation Committee for the work that they did beyond just our accolades, but I think it'd be nice to put something in writing to really thank them for the work that they do. That's it for now. Thank you.
Would you take the lead to come up with something?
I'd be happy to. I'd be
Great.
happy to. Thank you.
So I'm next, and I'm going to be very brief. All I want to do is similar to what Councilor Memard has done, is I'm going to create a summary of the major matters in Ward 4 and take a look at all my outstanding requests and make sure that they're consistent with our new referral to the Traffic Commission through the mayor's office, so we can make sure that we're acting consistent to the charter and the ordinance in terms of how we're going to bring things to the Traffic Commission. So I will be working on that. And I loved the spirit of yesterday's governance meeting. I think we're all really working hard to be good colleagues and asking good questions. And it feels really good. So everybody has got a lot on their plate, and it's really appreciated. And Joanne, thank you for the clerk's office, because I know with all these ward meetings coming up, the Zoom meetings, it's putting a lot of strain on Sherry and Grace and yourself. And it's been a long night. So so just make sure that they understand that they're a team, and we appreciate it, because when they're crazy busy, everyone else is even busier. Everybody's covering for each other. So it's great teamwork. So thank you all. And finally, Councilor Gross.
Thank you very much. Being a councilor at large, we don't get a lot of constituency. I mean, we've been getting bombarded with the zoning issue, but other than that, there hasn't been a whole lot that's come my way. There's just a couple of things that, as you and other councilors said last night, was quite good. I went to the website and I looked at the private road, and I brought up the meeting that you had with Mike Hale, and I just want to tell the councilors that they should go by the new ordinance, because the ordinance that was listed at that meeting is the old one, and you've made changes to it since then. So I would suggest that instead of, go to Code of Ordinances and find the new one to get the correct information, because particularly where proxy voting is now allowed, that was a big one. That's a big change that happened when we were doing it back then. It just Jason's point about SNAP, really invaluable tool to people. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you look frozen, but we can still hear you.
You guys are all frozen, so. But another value of the SNAP is you can get your utility bills get reduced, and that's a really big thing for people. So I would just like people to be aware that there's also that facet too. And besides the lunch at school, you get a reduced rate. So it really offers you an awful lot of opportunities to take advantage of if you get signed up for SNAP, and encourage everyone to go do that. And we'll, second, third, fourth, the role of Open Door. I really had the privilege of working with them, throughout the pandemic, and it was it was just quite an experience to see the evolution of how everything went to maximize the service to the people, and the amount of meals and groceries that went out of there was just phenomenal, and high quality stuff too. So that's about it for me. Oh, Val, if you could share that slide about the traffic commission that you didn't get to do last night to everybody, that would be great.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we conclude, I just want to acknowledge some attendees that have been here for the whole, is it 3.5 hours? Marion Boucher, Patty Amaral, Pamela Steele, Carrie McKenna, Olympia Palazzola, and Beverly Palmasi. So thank you for your civic duty of being on a very long call. It's appreciated. So without further ado, is there, oh, and also thank you to Jill Cahill and Kenny Coster for being here till the very end. I much appreciated it. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Councilor Nolan has a question.
Oh, go ahead.
One thing I'd like to add, and we talked about it a little bit, is when everybody's making their list of things that they're looking to get done or to put through to the mayor, reach out to the other counselors to ask them what their list, because some of us may have a lot of experience in things that you're looking to have and need help with. And I'm sure every one of us in our own strengths would be more than happy to give you advice on which way to go or what we've tried and what didn't work and what does work. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure anybody else with any list that you're looking to compile for things to get done in your ward.
Great advice. Councilor Memard, you had your hand raised. No? Okay. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So I think it was somebody moved it. Who? Council Worthley.
Give it to Jeff.
Jeff. So you moved it, and who seconded it?
Councilor
Tony.
I'm going to give it to Tony Gross. Okay.
Tony.
Gross.
Are
So
we keeping track? Is this going to be compiled at the end? Do we get prizes? Okay.
We're going to keep little tabs of who
Right.
makes the most motions. It's a
You're
little
gonna get a
competition.
little ribbon.
We love competition. Okay, so Councilor
Yes.
Gross, Councilor Majota,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilor Worthley,
Yes.
Councilor Gilman, yes, Councilor Gross.
Oh, yeah.
Good night, everybody. It's been
Good
a long
night.
night and a lot
Thank
of
you.
pop. Have a good
Thanks.
night.
Bye-bye.